Dogface, the liberator. Dogface, I'm the dude.
Nine, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fight!
We are loaded. That's what the sign said. Anyway, I don't know. I can't vouch for my colleagues, but that's what the sign said.
Let's verify the stream is streaming to all the places it's needing to be
I
streaming
believe.
to.
I was just finishing that, Marcus. That's why I wasn't talking. I was finishing that.
We are live on Deliberating Dogface Dude's YouTube. I confirm that. I see that we are live on Rumble, on AM Wake Up Channel. Where else are we streaming
mine
to?
also now.
The AM Wake Up Rockfin, the AM Wake Up Odyssey, the AM Wake Up BitChute. We're bit shooting. We are.
And the Benjamin Boulderson YouTube.
Okay.
That guy.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know if you caught that whole conversation
you know
in
what?
Telegram there, Steve, about that.
What's that?
I said, I don't know if you caught that whole conversation in Telegram about that.
I don't know if I did. I don't
Yeah.
know.
You didn't, you seemed to be busy for a few days, and there was a bunch of chatting, and then you came in and commented on some other things, but never on that, so I didn't know if you ever saw it.
No, my girl's kid had a birthday party on Saturday. On Sunday, we had to go to Mass. Benji. We did.
How'd you enjoy calisthenics?
I went to the East Bay to a Catholic church that the Spanish Mass. I understood about 60%.
Espanol.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Spanish and Latin.
Oh, so it's trilingual.
Traditional. No. Bilingual. No English.
No English.
No English.
Okay.
No.
No inglés
Lo sí.
a la iglesia.
Para español y latín. Solamente.
So tonight, guys.
Bueno.
We got tonight,
Claro.
guys. Tonight we got Wayne McCroy coming in. He'll be in just shortly, and we are going to discuss Lilith and the origins, and then the things that are bandied around today, the stories. Try and match all that up. Have a nice little discussion about it.
Yeah, you know, I really appreciate and enjoy what Wayne has brought to the overall community over the last, really decade, 12, 13 years, something like that. He's been at this for a minute. And yeah, he's one of those people that really does kind of seem to go his own way and is willing to have a conversation that might become a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. Super intelligent guy. Him and I have, despite coming from very different spectrums, have always gotten along fabulously.
Yeah.
Because he can speak reasonably and also doesn't get butthurt about things all the time.
Well,
That
and
is
Wayne
important.
was Ben, if I'm not mistaken, I'm a little bit lifted. Not enough yet. I'm gonna get there. But Wayne was one of those guys in the freaking little Facebook group where we all met before we all had shows and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was. And then Wayne was supposed to be the first event that I was going to speak at.
Oh, yeah.
Wayne was supposed to be one of the speakers in that. Yeah.
So there is 1 Wayne and 3 Garths tonight.
Swing.
So I guess we'll compete to see who's the Garthiest Garth of all Garth.
I have the girthiest Garth. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know.
I could
don't know.
play Garth.
I've actually seen Ben naked. We're close.
I got a kid.
I have a black cowboy hat, so I could take the Garth Brooks role. You guys want to take other Garths to pair up with me tonight?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I disturbed you. That's my bad.
Cat with Chris Gaines.
Before Wayne gets here, we have a clip from live stream debate. We wanted to
Okay.
get to.
Yes, sir.
Let's share that right now and see. He's big mad at me. Well, who's big mad at me? Powder Dusty?
Yeah, our friend, our associate Powder Dusty, he was apparently in a debate and drew this reaction from somebody. This is wild.
All right. This is our first time seeing it. 37 seconds. Ready?
This panel verse, and I swear on this panel verse, if I ever see him in this life, I will have his kneecaps with whatever piece I'm carrying, and I'll do that in time. Because Goblin's right. He is a piece of shit. He's running around here grifting for money over shit we're doing for free. Flow state, his family, except for his kids, just him and his wife, because they're both garbage. Now what the fuck about that? Tell me.
Holy!
Okay,
That was my favorite
man.
part.
Look, I know that I come from a different time or different era. I understand that my colleague here, Mr. Balderson, does as well. Neither Ben nor myself, and I am gonna speak for Ben on this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but neither Ben nor myself would ever be caught fucking dead threatening someone or trying to posture on TikTok to make a fucking peacock point. Ever.
That's fucking insane.
I've talked a lot about bullet emissions. That's an example of a bullet emission. That is a
And he didn't
random
fucking
bullet
look.
emission.
That's a bullet request. All right.
That dude, that's what gets me. That dude didn't fucking look. He looked like he was in some neighborhood and he just fucking pops around the corner, drops a cap. He didn't look ahead of time. Like there's some little kid over there like, ah! Like fucking, you know, did you just shoot at your neighbor? Like, what the fuck are you doing, dude?
Bro.
You never ever shoot at anything unless you know what you're doing. You're shooting at what is behind it. Like that day one shit.
I don't know anything about this gentleman.
When we were little fucking kids, we got the shit smacked out of the top of our heads because that was the only way the BB gun or the 22 or the actual rifle would point down if we were doing it, is if we got smacked on the top of our heads. We got smacked on the ass, it would go up because we'd go up.
He does not.
So they were like, no, we're going to smack you on the top of the fucking head if you aren't adhering to 10 very fucking simple rules. Number one, treat every gun like it's loaded, right? I mean, that's what you do when you pick up a firearm. You treat it like it's loaded. You point it down until you intend to raise it up to fire it at the thing that you're what, kids? Aiming at. That's right. That's right. It's not spray and pray. It's with intent, deliberation. Point and shoot. After you sight, point and shoot.
I'm glad we're getting the gun safety talk tonight. I think we're also going to get the reproductive health safety talk.
Wayne McCroy is here. and it
Right.
is my pleasure and my honor to bring up Wayne again. As far as this goes, Wayne, Balderson, myself, we've all been familiar with each other going way back to a Facebook group that probably hasn't existed for 5-6 years. I don't know.
Minimum.
Yeah. But and Wayne's books have been very, very instrumental in helping me form a more complete picture of the world that we live in. Very proud and very pleased to bring him up on the show right now. Wayne McCroy. Hey, man.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
What's up,
Good,
Wayne?
brother. How about
Hey,
you?
Wayne.
Good to be back on here. It's been a while since we've talked. We don't talk enough.
Right.
Let's fight.
I don't think we've talked in this collaborative environment before with these other minds together. This is a different gathering of minds tonight. I was joking that we have one Wayne and 3 Garths.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to party on. And
Well,
see
I
where
think
that takes us.
I think at some point all of us have collaborated together somewhere or another in different formats. So certainly we all do know each other. It's just we don't do this kind of thing enough where we get together in a collaborative like this and talk and really hash ideas out.
I heard we were going to gossip about Lilith.
We are going to gossip about Lilith.
Ooh.
So
Trollop.
one of the hot subjects of the world today is, because from my perspective, we live in a very feminine time. And so this story of Lilith is bandied about heavily and held up as an icon for feminism. And part of this is due to the story that you hear mostly presented in today's format is that Lilith was Adam's first wife, that apparently Adam had a wife before Eve. This one was not made from his rib. This one was, I'm not sure what it was made from, to be honest. And refused to have, anybody can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, missionary position sex, which was like considered somehow submissive. And which I don't know what guy in the world ever fought to have missionary sex, but that one's a little mind blowing on me. Like, yeah, let's go for basic boring. Yeah, you won't do that? No, I don't like you. But so out of this refusal, which they take as a complete refusal to submit, then Lilith quits being Adam's wife and is now somehow mother of the demons and but also fertility and reproduction at the same time.
I'm not entirely sure how that relates to the missionary position.
I'm with the not, like that not being the greatest. I'm with this. Like that part
and look, dude, I'm not here to hate on it because there's does it variate from missionary if she grabs her legs and pulls them back as far as she can with her hands?
If you're no longer missionary, I'm going to assume that you have to have some real flexibility, and you're probably doing yoga.
That's the Melusine. That's the Starbucks logo.
What about if you put a pillow up under that ass and you like grab the legs and you pin them up here? Is it still because you're still technically on top? I'm not hip to what the kids say as far as like positions and slang terms, and I don't know.
Yeah, not sure. Yeah. Feminists are much more detailed about these kind of things, and then they're always like, men just want to have sex, and then that's all they talk about, and the dudes are over talking about cars and shit. You're like,
right.
Well, that's why they adopted Lilith as this feminist kind of icon. because that's essentially what's been adopted, is these negative connotations associated with that. And I think it's more about being second fiddle than it is about positions, essentially, because honestly, it goes a lot deeper than just the sexual aspect, but that is part of some of the Jewish tradition that they present with Lilith. And we could dig a little deeper in that, because this actually goes in a different direction altogether than what the mainstream Jewish Kabbalah tradition talks about with this. So it's not so much about sexual positions, although the feminists always treat it that way and try to frame it that way to justify their position. I don't understand what the logic is behind that, because like I really don't know any guys that would complain about not having to do the work, but let's be honest here. So I don't see that
confusing,
really
right?
Yeah, I don't understand. Like the whole premise on the face of it, with that being presented as one of the main talking points for this feminist take on it, is just flawed in its presentation, in my view. But this goes a lot deeper, and there are other archetypes and stuff involved, and there are actually deeper stories that go back further into the Kabbalah talking about this. And this relates to a concept called Tannin Ivor, and I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but we'll definitely talk about that, because that is a fascinating subject, and it's all part of this mythology that arose around this Lilith figure. And we could see there's a lot of these traditions that the secret societies have brought about based upon that. And a lot of these different cults, occult organizations within the different secret society groups and stuff, they are all obsessed with sex magic, like the OTO and other branches of it. And a lot of it derives from this concept of Tannin Ivor. So it does run a lot deeper than what the mainstream feminist story of Lilith really is. But it has been adopted as an icon for these militant feminists of our day, because they see it as being empowering rather than something negative. And there's a lot of negative energy attached to that. So I'd love to hear some more of what your take is on this, like how it got hijacked as an archetype by the feminist movement, and what your thoughts are on this current feminist movement, because there is an occult background to it that most people are unaware of.
Well, let me first address this comment, and then I will turn it over to my colleagues. Doggy style. This is the comment from Anna Maris. Doggy style is inherently pornographic. You don't see her face. That's only, Anna, if you're disrespectful enough to not grab her by the side of the outside side of the face and turn her face towards you and say, look at me, we're going to make eye contact while we do this. Otherwise, yeah, you're probably right. If you're just like sitting there checking the crown molding, trying not to come fast, it might be.
The comment may be related to the brand of the format of the stream of the show. We are calling ourselves, what are we calling ourselves? Deliberating Dogface dudes. So we're going to get a lot of cat jokes, a lot of dog jokes, a lot of puns, and the world has just gone to a degenerate state of pornography.
And we're introducing a new segment where we give dog names to people who have chickened out on debating with us. We'll debut that later in the program.
It's part of the puppy training program.
It is.
There are debate academies, Gnostic academies, all sorts of secret schools of training, and we have our own that we're about to.
We won't drag Wayne into that. No
Wayne
reason.
doesn't have a dog in that fight. We're talking Lilith tonight, and I get confused with Jezebel spirits and Lilith spirits.
He gets them all worked up. He gets all antsy in the pantsy. And I will answer my messages from last week. I'm sorry, I see that I got one from you, but I've been hauling dirt like mad all week and dealing with cows and the whole nine. I'm sorry, so I'm way behind. Yeah.
You are built like a dump truck, and Wayne is here to discuss the differences between Jezebel and Lilith. We're into Venn diagrams. We call them men diagrams. So what's the difference between Jezebel and Lilith?
Well, first of all, maybe we should discuss the difference between a Venn diagram and a Venn diagram.
Okay.
I've seen some of Ben's diagrams and some of his doodles. So there's a little bit of a difference there, but all in good fun, we could say about these things. But there is a slight difference between a Jezebel spirit and a Lilith spirit, although they tend to be accepted as almost of the same type of lineage. Let's put it that way. The Jezebel spirit, this comes from the story in the Bible about the figure Jezebel, which is completely different, a different story and arc from the Lilith arc. But it all represents feminism somehow. That's what has happened in the modern era, especially in the modern teachings of the occult. They've taken these concepts and they've misconstrued them and made them one and the same when they're not. There are slight differences and variations between them. And we get this a lot. And Ben and I were actually talking about this, about some other aspects of things. How what has happened is you get a small group of influential occultists that arose back, primarily, there's a couple periods in history I've discovered through my research where this happens. And one of the big ones that affects us in the modern era happened in the mid to late 1800s, where you had some of these more prominent occultists were getting together in their meetings and stuff like that, and they came up with a lot of these ideas, and they took some of the old teachings and the old information they could find, and they misinterpreted it, misconstrued it, and applied it toward their own agenda, and then they taught this forward through these various secret schools, secret society groups, occult fraternities through the course of time, and this is what got adopted into modern occult thinking. And this is what they say this stuff comes from, when in fact what it is it's a distortion, and oftentimes it's an inversion of what the original teachings were. So this is what happens with that kind of thing. And this is a perfect example, because they'll take this notion of a Jezebel spirit and they'll conflate it with the spirit of Lilith, which is something entirely different. Because here's the thing, okay? When it comes down to it, Lilith is not a human entity, and Jezebel was a human being. And this is wherein there's a distinction, and a big distinction to be made. So when you understand that, the things that Jezebel did are kind of relegated off into obscurity at this point, because it's all kind of been absorbed by this Lilith kind of figure that's been put wholesale into the collective consciousness here. So that's wherein they draw some of the archetypes. So Jezebel was kind of a traitor, and that's kind of more of the spirit along the lines of Jezebel, as opposed to Lilith. Lilith wasn't necessarily a traitor spirit. It's more like a vampiric spirit, more so than anything else, when compared to a Jezebel spirit, which is about, well, pretty much bucking anything holy or spiritual and being a traitor of sorts. So there's some minor differences in detail, but it's all been absorbed into the same central icon or symbol or figure, especially as it pertains to modern feminism. And feminism in this day and age has a lot of problems with it. And what they've actually done is they've taken some of the occult philosophies that help to shape feminism, and the icons and the symbols and the archetypes like Lilith, and they've applied them in a way wherein they introduce modern science and technology into the mix. And this is called techno-feminism. And this is the mainstream pushing of this militant feminism we see. This is where it's heading. And there's actually books that have been written about this by these techno-feminists, that's what they call themselves, where they are totally to the point, they're so mentally ill at this point with the things they've been promoting, that they want to reject the notion of gender altogether. And this leads into a philosophy known as post-genderism, which is a code word for transhumanism. And that's where it all leads to. And this is what the mindset is of this techno-feminist push. And what mainstream feminism, as we see it in culture and society today, is pushing towards and for. That's why they are totally about abortion, and they're totally about all of these things that are anti-life, really, when it comes down to it. And it all has this occult backing to it, and it's all pointing forward and trying to merge the ideology with the technology of the era to bring this about. And it's all leading to this post-human, transhumanist push, post-genderism. All these things lead together in the same direction. And they've weaponized the feminine energy to do that. And that's what we're seeing going on in society today. And I find that hugely concerning.
If I may, Wayne, let me underscore this point a little bit with a little bit of an older conversation that one of Elon Musk's baby mamas had with the CIA MIT robot Lex Friedman, where she talks about exactly what Wayne is underscoring right here.
It's really dark, and you hope that we can sort of overcome that aspect of human nature, but that's still within us somewhere.
Well, I think that's what we're doing right now. I have this theory that what is very important about the current moment is that all of evolution has been survival of the fittest up until now. And at some point, you know, it's kind of, the lines are kind of fuzzy, but in the recent past, or maybe even just right now, we're getting to this point where we can choose intelligent design. Like, we probably, since like the integration of the iPhone, like, we are becoming cyborgs. Like, our brains are fundamentally changed. Everyone who grew up with electronics, we are fundamentally different from Homo sapiens. I call us Homo Techno. I think we have evolved into Homo Techno, which is like essentially a new species. Like, if you look at the way, if you took an MRI of my brain and you took an MRI of like a medieval brain, I think it would be very different the way that it has evolved.
Do you think when historians look back at this time, they'll see like this was a fundamental shift in what a human being is?
I do not think we are still Homo sapiens. I believe we are Homo Techno, and I think we have evolved, and I think right now the way we are evolving, we can choose how we do that. And I think we are being very reckless about how we're doing that. Like, we're just having social media, but I think this idea that like this is a time to choose intelligent design should be taken very seriously. It, like, now is the moment to reprogram the human computer. You know, it's like, if you go blind, your visual cortex will get taken over with other functions. We can choose our own evolution. We can change the way our brains work. And so we actually have a huge responsibility to do that. And I think, I'm not sure who should be responsible for that, but there's definitely not adequate education. We're being inundated with all this technology that is fundamentally changing the physical structure of our brains, and we are not adequately responding to that to choose how we want to evolve. And we could evolve, we could be really whatever we want. And I think this is a really important time. And I think if we choose correctly and we choose wisely, consciousness could exist for a very long time, and integration with AI could be extremely positive. And I don't think enough people are focusing on this specific situation.
Do you think?
Wow, Grimes.
Oh, they are focusing on it. You just don't know about it, little girl.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there.
So, my understanding of the Lilith story, and it goes along with what Wade's saying, and this is where it's interesting. Part of this, a lot of this to begin with, is this little game that through the course of our upcoming shows, we want to touch on quite a bit, where they've taken and they've just decided to mush figures from different mythologies together. So biblically, or in the actual Jewish works, there is no actual story of Lilith. This is, from the way I understand it, pulled from whether it's Sumerian or Mesopotamian, and then they'll give you different names. They're like, see, that name's Lilith in that language. No, it's fucking not. No, it's fucking not. And in the one, the Lilith figure isn't even an actual name, and there's actually a masculine name for it, and they actually have to feminize it. They're like, see, here's Lilith, but if it was a female, it would be this. Like, so it's not even the same thing. So there's a play, and like anybody else, the Jewish community had their own playwrights and things like that. And there's a play either called The Alphabet of Ben Sira or The Alphabet of Ben Sirach. And this was written between 700 and 1000 AD. So 1,000 years ago. Not that long. Not something from the original stories. And in this story, which was a play, similar to like me comparing going and watching Marvel to try and find out about things about Odin, and then later acting like those things are part of the mythology, is literally what happened here. So they took an entertainment play, and in this play, the way the play goes is the alphabet, he's teaching the alphabet to this little boy, and so there's little events that he teaches with each letter rather than going A, B, C. And so Lilith is then the Lilith story goes with L. And this is just how they're teaching this little boy how to do it. It's all just a play. And they picked this up and pretended like this is real and actually incorporated it into the reality of the myth according to them. And this was specifically Kabbalistic feminists that did this, very specifically. In the time range Wayne spoke of, him and I have had very mirroring work in that time range, because there's a lot of twisting of the occult that happens during that time, where these different ideas get brought forward as if they're ancient. But when you turn back and you go to look at those things, like we are right now here with Lilith, where when we look at the actual origins of the story, it comes from a play. It comes from entertainment. It doesn't come from actual religion. That there's no truth to what's being displayed today. So then what we have to take it as occultists is this is almost then becomes something that they want people to put energy into, which that's a very magical thing. That's a very known thing, where you take a figure, you put a whole bunch of energy into it. Now this gains a life of its own, even though it's not something out of mythology or anything. So to me, this is more an egregore, which is what they would call that. This is more of an egregore than an actual mythological character. And it's an egregore of feminism.
And it's taken on a whole different level of power because of all the energy that's been fed into it. And you're absolutely spot on. I agree with a lot of what you have said there. And it's interesting that we approach these things from different points of view, but we come to the same conclusions. And I think that's what's important. And that's why it's important we have talks like this. We couldn't be more different in our approaches to things, but we come to the same conclusions, and we understand what's been done here. And what's been done is they've developed this idea within Kabbalah, and they've twisted and contorted it, and they've fed it forward through these different occult channels and had it largely adopted by these people, and it's taken on a life of its own at this point. So the whole point being here is, regardless of whether this stuff is true or not, and most of the time it's not, and you find this when you research a lot of different occult topics like this, oftentimes it's not, but the important point is there's enough people that have put enough energy and belief into it that they've kind of brought it into manifestation. And it is a principle known in magical circles as an egregore or a tulpa or something like that, where as it becomes an animated spirit unto itself, it's about the thought forms. And I've done innumerable studies into the notion of how these thought forms become manifest and take on this energy and begin to shape themselves into something like this. And we see that going on across the board. Another good example of the same kind of thing going on is look at the works of Paracelsus and how this was also engrafted by these same people in that same time period. And you could start naming some names with this stuff in the mid to late 1800s. It's all the same circle of people, the Theosophists and that type of ilk of people that were taking a lot of these ideas and applying them in a different direction. And it took on an energy and life of its own. Another perfect example, like I was going to cite, it has to do with the works of Paracelsus, where he wrote about elementals. And largely, do you know where the systems that these magical fraternities and occult groups have, where they come from this notion of elementals? They come from a fictional work titled The Comte de Gabalis that talks about this very subject, about elementals and the different forms that they take on, sylphs and the other ones, salamanders and gnomes, the air, the sprites, all of these different things. I forget all the different names that were supposedly lifted from Paracelsus, where he talked about some type of a natural intelligence that guides and directs certain things. But this work of fiction is largely what catapulted it to mainstream occultism. And now you have groups like the OTO. They perform actual rituals and rites at the highest, most levels in their degree systems, where they have sex with elementals, supposedly. Because you see how they engraft the sex magic idea into all of that? And they marry themselves to this elemental, and they think they're doing some kind of a service to this being, to this entity, this intelligence that may or may not really exist, but they've given it this type of a life. And you find this a lot, and it's all based on a work of fiction that was talking about this. It was a type of satire. The person who wrote the book wrote it as satire. And what that means, Comte de Gabalis, the Count of Kabbalah, is essentially what that means, if my memory serves me correctly, the Count of Kabbalah. And it's, I think it's a German book. I've read the whole thing from beginning to end because I was fascinated with this study. And then you have guys like Manly P. Hall are quoting from this stuff. And a lot of people in the modern occult organizations and secret society groups, they think this is factual and this is what this is all based on, and they act as if it is. And this kind of thing projects their energy to that, and they get some kind of a response from the other side, from the invisible worlds, from the spirit realm. And you have to wonder, what is it really? They think they understand what they're dealing with, but they don't. And that's the whole bottom line here. And I'm not disregarding anything supernatural by any means. I most certainly have seen supernatural stuff in my day.
Where are the accusations coming from, Wayne? And are they like, because we are in an era where the last, I don't know, 10, 12, maybe 15 years, people really have turned their eye towards this specific kind of research and trying to dig into understanding more complex questions. But let's say specifically in the era in which the text itself was released, can we look at, or can there be pointed to major pushback in the era?
Well, we see usually surrounding this stuff, you'll find a couple key figures that are the ones that promote these ideas. And yeah, I suspect they did get some pushback from various places, mostly the organized religions and stuff like that, I would say, were the ones that were giving them pushback on these ideas, because this wasn't something they openly discussed out there in public theaters or something like that. This is something that they kept within the auspices of these secret society groups and occult fraternities, and they claim to be the only way where you could access this information. They've took a lot of the old concepts which predate all of these Kabbalah ideas and everything, and they've hidden them away within different writings and stuff in their different secret society groups, libraries and things like that. So a lot of this stuff remained hidden for a very long time within the bounds of the secret society groups, and the ones who control the high levels of initiation in the secret society groups are the ones that primarily controlled the information. And here's the other kicker with all of that. All these secret society groups and occult fraternities, they knowingly and admittedly lie to their lower level members about what it is they're talking about, with a lot of the symbols and a lot of the different meanings of the rituals and stuff that they do. And yet they, for some reason, these people think that as they achieve higher ranks within the fraternity, that somehow they're unveiling the secrets to them then. The big secret behind all the secrets is that there's really no secret. That's the biggest thing I've discovered. They don't know. All of these people, they don't know. They make assumptions and they act like they know what they're talking about. And oftentimes that's enough to give them influence and sway and power in this world. And they tap into things they don't understand. And I think it's important to look at some of these concepts that we would call magic with a scientific frame of mind, because there are those out there who've studied this and have actually been able to reveal a proof of concept with many of these things. They don't understand why it works, but it does work. And I think this has been a commodity throughout the history of mankind. Magicians don't necessarily know what it is they're contacting or what they're doing or why it works, but they do know that it works. If you do certain prescribed things, you will get this result. It's a type of causal engineering. And one of the people that I respect very much who's looked into this in the modern era is Dr. Stephen Skinner. And he goes at this with a scientific viewpoint and an approach. And he'll tell you he doesn't know why it works. He's just been able to prove in laboratory experimentation that it does work for some reason. If you do these things prescribed by the various different older books that they have, these different grimoires and things like that, if you do the prescribed spell within the grimoire, it works. He doesn't know why, and he doesn't know how, but he does know that it works. And a lot of what we have seen come to fruition in the modern era, in my opinion, because of the influence of these certain occultists at certain time periods, is the result that we, I think, are beginning to understand a little differently today in terms of people who are studying this in the modern era. It's something they call chaos magic. Doesn't matter what system you apply to it. You just have to have your belief in that system and put your faith in that system, and it will be able to produce results. And you have to adopt certain, I guess, what you would call maybe spirits that you apply to different concepts in that way, which represent natural energies. This is largely something that has come about just in recent years. Like, I'm talking since about the 1960s, they developed this system of what they call chaos magic, and they claim that it works, and they don't have any particular mythology or something they ascribe to. Oftentimes they invent their own mythology, or they take other works of fiction and apply it forward. But the problem is they sometimes do get some results, and therefore that encourages them to keep going forward with this. So is this the same kind of thing where you have the energy being applied to it and it produces this notion of an egregore of sorts? Or they have other terminology for this. Egregore is kind of like a low-level energetic manifestation in that way. There's higher level ones that they talk about as more people actually provide those thought forms to feed this egregore. So it's an interesting concept for sure. And I don't claim to have all the answers with this stuff. I've been looking at it from a lot of different vantage points myself. And I think there's something behind it that's maybe a little more insidious, that tends to give some power into this line of thinking and reasoning with things. But certainly we see how oftentimes people get involved with this stuff, and then it takes on a life of its own, and it begins to dominate their lives. You'll get that a lot if you talk to people who have come out of these different occult fraternities and stuff like that, who've walked away from it. They oftentimes still have problems that pertain to the things they've done because of what they've actually allowed to enter into their life, the energy that they've allowed around them. It attracts more of the same to them. So it's an interesting way of thinking, and we see this across the board. And I think we maybe circled away from the topic at hand here a little bit.
No,
but it's
that's
important.
totally
It's
fine.
important. Yeah, it's important that we suss these things out because it's so much involved with it. It seems to me that regardless of the point, it has no basis in fact or history a lot of times, it still doesn't mean it's not effective. And that's what the occultists of the modern era have brought forward. They still invoke these same archetypes, and there is an underlying archetype behind it, but they give it different names and they move it forward and develop these systems on it. Another perfect example of this would be the Roman system. The Romans, they took old Greek mythology, applied new names to the figures therein, made a couple of changes, and brought it forward into their system that they operate under. And we see there's so many different mystery schools that evolved at that time that had differing belief systems and stuff like that, that they were able to invoke different responses from people, that it became so muddled over the course of time that all of these mythologies have been comparatively brought into the fold with that kind of thing, because it's all about these small secret society groups that wanted to instantiate power for themselves and control over the people. So they would take this mythological archetype and they would use it to control and manipulate people. And they would work these systems wherein they would feed the energy to it, and then things would happen. And they noticed things were happening and that it works, and they don't quite understand why, although you'll have people that claim to understand why. And that's where we get the problem. So you get your gurus and your select few people who claim to know some things about this stuff, and they put things down on paper in book form, and they hide it away in their secret archives and libraries, and they teach it to their students, and then their students take it forward, put their own little twist and spin on it, and then you wind up with all kinds of complicated and convoluted ideas like we have today within the heart of these various occult fraternities and secret society groups. Now, there are some things that they have derived this from antiquity that were known commodities to a lot of people in the early days, but now they've misapplied these and inverted them from what some of the original intent was. Anyway,
I have a
that's enough
screen
talking
share
for me.
to bring up.
So one of the reasons that what was said before is important is not, once you've dissected that this isn't the original myth, this isn't the actual figure, that means somebody made this shit up. Why did they make that up? And why did they want you to feed power into that thing? There's a distinctive purpose to that. This is not something that's from a natural story anymore. This is something somebody's concocted for a reason. What is that reason?
I think I have an example of a possible reason. On screen, we see activist Jex Blackmore took an abortion pill on live TV. Whether it went viral or not, I don't know. Her group of people who are making art together, they're doing some performance art and activism together. Yes. So they have a lot of sock puppet accounts, and they'll upvote their stuff on Reddit, and they'll repost and make it look like there's a conversation happening organically, when it's really just a handful of people with multiple accounts acting like there's a big story here. This person would probably be forgotten if they didn't publish their own videos over and over and over again. Her big stunt was to go on live TV, and I have that video if we need to see it, and then she takes a pill, glass of water, swallows it, and just announces that she performed a live abortion on a news broadcast. Now, with the
Nobody got her pregnant. We got her pregnant. Oh, bullshit, lady.
This is a very goth name. Very goth coded. It's connected to some version of some kind of satanic temple or church or something. So we're talking about inversion. The satanic principle is inversion of the Christ principle, this type of thing. So she's taken performance art to a whole new level to say that now, combining with what Grimes is saying, this techno-homo thing, we have the choice with medications, puberty blockers, all these things where chemically we can alter our body, our hormones, and the natural order of things. And I think this is what Wayne was getting on with. And so this is a real example of the teachings and the ideas from Lilith to Jezebel to the other one, Delilah. We could talk a little bit about Delilah and all the baddies of the Bible and how they influence satanic women today.
Well, yeah, that's because they've largely adopted these as archetypes to work from. That's the whole thing. It's all about that spirit of rebellion when it comes down to it, that Lucifer spirit. So essentially, this is a feminized version of that Lucifer spirit, is what they've tried to manufacture with this Lilith archetype, and certainly we see that. And I mean, look at the names these people give themselves, because I assure you, she was probably not named that when she was born. Jex Blackmore. That's a name that somebody takes on for themselves, and this is an important concept within many of these occult fraternities and secret societies too. They like to give themselves new names when they've been initiated to certain levels, or they like to give themselves certain titles. And all of this, like what?
Like the Pope?
Like, exactly like the Pope. You're not going to get an argument with me from me on that one. I agree. There's something a little bit suspicious that goes on within the Vatican there too.
Leo?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Leo,
we'll jump you in. You can be a part of our gang, but you have to take a different name.
Exactly.
They can't know you by your government name, dog.
Exactly. It's all about the name game. Because here's the thing. When you give a name to something, that gives you power over that thing, whether it be a person or a thing. And you could find this example given in the first book of the Holy Bible, where God gives man dominion over all things here. And what's the first thing he has Adam do? You name everything. So Adam names everything. That gives him power over it. This is an important concept, and it's something that's adopted within these occult fraternities and stuff too.
How do you
why do they give
power
you a new
and dominion? And is there a difference, in your opinion, between power and dominion?
Well, this is all part of the spiritual hierarchy of things, if you want to use the language in that way. But man has been given dominion over the earth. That is the term that's used in the Bible. That means that gives him control, essentially, over these things. He could make the earth submit to him. And this is all part of how man was created in the image of the Creator, because the Creator has all things subject to him. So as a smaller version of that in and of ourselves, we have dominion in this place, in this creation that we have been placed in. So we have dominion. But in order to have dominion, in order to have power over a thing, in order to have influence over a thing or be able to affect a thing, first you have to give it a name. And that's an important concept here. And that's something we see that is prevalent within these secret society groups. So now they give this person, this initiate, a new name. And now they know that person's name. And this is alluded to in the Bible, too. This has to do with something called the Tetragrammaton as well, the unspeakable name of God. If you know the unspeakable name of God, according to the old Kabbalistic traditions and stuff, that gives you immense power over this entire creation, because you can make your petitions to God and he will have to perform those for you, according to what they say within many of these occult fraternities and these Kabbalists. I don't necessarily believe them with a lot of what they say, but this is one of the carrots that they dangle in front of people all the time. So there's a lot of symbology and stuff involved with all of that, but certainly to give somebody a new name gives you some type of a power over them, especially if it's a secret name. That gives it a lot more sway, because there's only a select few people that will know what that secret name is. And therefore, it's kind of like this inner circle kind of idea, whereas you're held to account by your secret name, according to your secret name, with the occult fraternity or the secret brotherhood, and you're bound by blood oaths that you make to this. They do all of these things, and it's all based on nonsense. It's all based upon a principle that I call synthetic initiation. They've taken a natural principle that was inherent in this natural creation. We all go through a sort of natural initiation in this world, in this life. It's through life experience, and everybody's initiatory path is supposed to be different, because we're all individuals. What they've done is they've systematized this process and they've turned it into a one-size-fits-all initiation ritual within these occult fraternities. It's totally fake. It's totally synthetic. And then they claim to be the only ones that can lead you down the path to this secret knowledge. And you have to go through their initiation rites to do so.
Which they have not achieved yet themselves.
Exactly. It's all a lie. It's all based on fraud and manipulation. And that's part of where the magic comes in, because they do perform these types of things. They have immense control over the initiate in certain ways, because now they had you swear a blood oath. They threaten you. They'll tell you if you reveal the secrets of the fraternity, you'll be killed. Look at William Morgan. They'll point to him. They'll say, look what they did to him, the Freemasons. And you'll know, look at the Jack the Ripper killings. They point all these things out, and they'll tell you that they tell you exactly how they're going to do it. They'll ritually do it in certain ways, and they threaten you with that. Therefore, you keep your mouth shut, and hopefully you get some of the secret information portrayed to you. And here's what I find the most interesting of all with these things. Now, in the very beginning phases, when these secret society groups and occult fraternities try to recruit somebody, and they'll tell you, we don't recruit, you come knock on the door and you ask, and then we'll take a vote whether we'll let you in or not. But they do kind of recruit, whether it's a direct recruiting or not. And it's especially if you belong to one of these softer type groups like the Freemasons, the Blue Lodge of the Freemasons, that they recruit from. But they recruit based upon certain principles. And when they first begin to recruit people from the outside that maybe don't have any inclinations into the occult at all, they'll tell them things like, oh, okay, well, the Bible and all of these different stories that we base our systems upon and our traditions upon, well, it's all allegory. It's all just allegory. It's analogy. It's all just stories, fictional stories that portray different types of moral points within them. And they string these people along early on with that, telling them it's all allegory. There's nothing supernatural, that all of this stuff is just the tradition, and it's all got this hidden meaning, and it's all just literary, and it's all just symbolic. And they string them along until they get to the higher levels. They get beyond the Blue Lodge. And then they start to tell them, actually, there are supernatural powers that you can acquire through initiatory rites if you follow our teachings. And they dangle that carrot before them. So then they make an admission to supernatural things. They'll say, yes, we are the only ones that can do that. We have the knowledge. We have the training. We can teach you the soul science so that you could perform these miraculous works and perform the magic. But it's only through our system and through our ascended masters and our teachers that you can learn how to do this. And then you'll see the true power of all of this stuff. So they're liars and disingenuous on the face of it. And they convince a lot of people to turn their backs on anything spiritual, which I think is the biggest crime of all. Because in the early phases of recruiting people or getting people initiated into the lodge, they teach them that this is all there is. With this physical reality in which we live, they encourage that idea, this hyper-materialist paradigm, that there's nothing spiritual that goes on. There's no supernatural power. There's no creator per se. You just have to believe in a creator to be a Freemason. You just have to believe in a God. You don't have to say what God it is. They don't care about that. But then they teach you secular humanist ideas. And they teach you all of these atheistic type principles early on in the Blue Lodge. And they tell you it's all just symbolism. It's all just the wisdom of man, that there's nothing supernatural or spiritual about it. And they divert a lot of people from spiritual paths in this way. And then the ones that they get on the hook with the spiritual paths, they take them down a dark road through this synthetic initiation. And then they introduce them to these occult ideas that have been circulated by a select few people in the different historical periods that have put these systems forward, and they lead them down this wrong path, in my view. But that's enough of me rambling. I'd love to hear your thoughts on things.
Got a lot of thoughts. And to bring up the symbolism in the name, there are a series of clinics that provide private and safe services to women. The title of the clinic is a Lilith clinic. What type of services do you think a Lilith clinic in let's see, Nevada, Las Vegas, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. What sort of services, outpatient care, do they provide? Lilith
Schmorstens?
It would have to be empowering, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, they got the power to destroy their own seeds, their own offsprings. That's awesome. You're great. So impressive. So very, very impressive. Empowered. Marcus and I have had the privilege twice of being in some interesting conversations. One was about
twice.
Yeah. We've been in a lot of them, but that pertains.
These are your top two.
That pertained to this. That pertained. One of these was with somebody that got to see the original documentation that the Rosicrucians based their provenance off in order to become a secret society. And it was a forgery because it was at the time, in order to be considered particularly viable in the occult, upheld, you had to have somebody from Germany that was going to sponsor you. And so it was this Fraulein Spranger was the name. Well, the guy who actually got to go in and look at the actual documentation that Marcus and I got to talk to, in German, verbs have a masculine and a feminine. And so he said, as they're translating this and looking at it, all the verbs were in masculine. So he said, when we got to the end, we're like, Fraulein Spranger, wait, what kind of, what is going on here? And so the person who had forged it wasn't familiar enough with German in order to understand the intricacies of the language, and didn't put the feminine verbiage, or just was so used to using the masculine verb because they're a man, that they didn't put in the feminine verb, which is what a woman would do. And so that was absolute forgery. And then we got to talk to he was a real bigwig in the OTO. Guy's been on History Channel. There's documentaries about his stuff. Oh, it was all bad, Wayne. I lit this guy up like a fucking birthday candle. Like, oh, it was bad. The guy doesn't know anything. And he even admitted in his story, he wrote his first books. The only reason they got published was because one of the under members of the OTO wanted to become one of the bigwigs. And he said, well, you want that promotion? You're going to have to be published in my book. And so his book got published in that way, not because it was well done, not because the information was good or right, but because he twisted the arm of somebody else in order to get them into it, which also means that person wasn't worthy of being in that position, which is what's happened over and over and over.
Right. And we see this carries over into society too, doesn't it? That kind of thing where it's the old boy system. The Masons, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You get a square deal down at the car dealership. You get the promotion ahead of a non-Mason. All of these kind of things do go on. And I have found, actually, through the course of time and researching this stuff, oftentimes even the high-level members associated with some of these secret society groups, they don't even know what it is they believe, and they cannot back up their stance on things or why they believe what they believe, or what they've been shown that has proven to them any of this. They're faking it. A lot of it's fake it till you make it with these secret society groups. And that is something that gives them this type of power over the more gullible people beneath them coming up through the system that somehow think this guy knows something I don't. And that's something I've encountered just in life in general. I used to think when I was young that there were adults and stuff like that had it all figured out. They knew what they were doing. That they're all flying by the seat of their pants. It's the same thing with these weirdo occultists out there who claim to be these high-level masters of this and that and know this, that, and the other thing and make these claims. They don't know what they're talking about most of the time. They're faking it till they make it. And this is where a lot of people get their information from and their teachings and stuff from with this stuff. And then they wonder why they're just never quite good enough. And that's the whole thing with these secret societies. This is how they keep stringing people along through the system. Maybe if if you follow your teacher's directions verbatim and your heart is pure enough and you want this bad enough and you study hard enough, maybe someday eventually you'll develop one of these occult powers, but you're just not quite good enough. I'm sorry. But if you keep doing what I tell you, then maybe someday you'll get there. This is how they string people along. That's the carrot that they dangle in front of them. And people eat it up. Those that are trying to seek some type of control over their lives, those people that feel like they're I don't know, victims of life, that these are the people that they prey upon in these occult fraternities. Many people that get involved with especially these darker occult fraternities that seem to fetishize these sex rituals and stuff like that, they prey upon these people that are playing the victim, that they feel like they're a victim. They have no control over other aspects of their life. So they think that somehow joining one of these occult fraternities will give them magical power and the ability to transform something in their lives. And it really doesn't. It just leads them down this darker path and makes them manipulated by higher level members of that order. Now, maybe they have somebody to cry and whine to and complain to and maybe help them out here and there with certain things, but it doesn't pan out how they ever expect. I've seen this over and over again with a lot of these people that involve themselves with this stuff. And it's really insidious on the face of it, especially when you realize, hey, this guy is supposed to be high level and know what he's talking about, and he can't even tell me some of the history about this. You find that more and more. Like the vast majority of Freemasons, they have no clue where these ideas come from that they've been taught in the Blue Lodge, or what it's all about, or what it symbolizes. They think they know because that's what they were told, but then you could show them where Albert Pike says we lie to the lower level members until they hit the 29th degree about what the meanings are of the symbols and stuff, but they think they know, and we want them to think that they know, because that keeps the secrets protected, the alleged secrets. And it frosts me to no end, because when you actually dig deep enough into this stuff and explore the historical roots of it, you find that most of it's based on fraud or fiction. And that's the bottom line. It doesn't mean that there's no power inherent in what they've brought forward, even though it is based on fraud. But when you begin to question the foundation of it, and when you can smash apart the foundation of it, that takes all the power right out of it. It takes all the life and breath right out of the whole thing. And they don't like that. They don't like to be questioned like that. So oftentimes they will avoid answering questions directly about what it is that they believe and what they do. And that's one of the reasons why they keep the secrecy. They don't want the gig to be up. They still want people that are vested in this thing to believe that they're somehow going to benefit from it, and somehow this group has some type of special place in the world. And they don't want that illusion destroyed. So they keep the secrets, and they say those people don't understand, they're profane. They're not going to believe anything you tell them about it. They think it's nonsense. And they keep the secrets. They keep their mouths shut because they've been threatened. First of all, they've taken blood oaths. Second of all, they're compromised. Third of all, because oftentimes these people get involved in things where they could use it as blackmail later for them. So a lot of times they keep their mouths shut and they don't spill the secrets, and they just go along to get along within these groups. And it's all designed based upon this manipulation of people. And I think we did stray a little away from the main topic again, but
we're right on topic. We're approaching our target.
Right. Well, this whole Lilith thing is kind of the next level of that, because now they've devised this whole movement in the greater social order, the social culture in and of itself, that has adopted these ideologies, this militant feminism, which is ultimately a death cult. That's what it is. It's a death cult. It's based in eugenics, and it's a death cult. That's the spirit behind it. And they've adopted it as if it's a positive thing, that it's somehow empowering or reaffirming their place in this reality. And it leads, of course, to this transhumanist push that we're seeing. And you can see how these things align in those different ways. So I'll shut up now and let somebody else talk.
Oh, we appreciate all the talking. And there is a dark irony that is happening in these lodges, whether it's like an OTO, Ordo Templar Orientis, or some new witches coven where they have a male leader who's a king witch, or some new folk group, or whatever it is. This dark irony exists where the story of Lilith says that Adam insisted that Lilith play a subservient role to him. He's the husband, she's the wife. So Adam says, I'm the husband, serve me, subservient role. And then Lilith is said to have grown wings and flew away for meat, and she flies the coop. She leaves the house, she just packs her bags and leaves. In these orders, these secret groups, these OTO groups, covens, whatever you want to call them, that have grades, they have orders, they have hierarchies, they have positions. The new members are told to be subservient. So these women who are strong and feminist and ready to do anything, they want to join a coven, they want to be in the in-group, and then they have to play a subservient role while idolizing Lilith, who grew wings and flew away from anybody who told her to take her place in the kitchen, perhaps.
Lilith gives you wings, just like Red Bull, apparently, right?
Yeah. And it wasn't over at making a Sammy. It was over, no, lay on your back and sit there like a fish.
Well, what? That's the point of this role of her being the patron saint of what it was in Ulysses. Remember that book that guy wrote, Ulysses? You can't read the book because it's all poetry. He calls her the patron saint of abortions, Lilith. So Lilith being the stand-in for a women's bodily autonomy and choice and rights and things. If Lilith is then saying, I don't want to have your children, Adam, I want to be, let's just not have kids. Let's not do that. And Adam says, well, we were told to be fruitful and multiply. You're my wife. We're in this union together. And now you're not providing offspring. This isn't working out. So before she could get fired, she quits the job, packs her bags and flies away. She leaves the group. So this character of Lilith is so misunderstood by empowered women who want to be in these groups together. And Lilith in the story is a woman who doesn't get along with anybody. She doesn't make any compromise. She doesn't think there's anything wrong with her lifestyle, her choices, the way she dances at the party, all the choices she wants to make and impose on everybody else. But when it's time for her to say, well, we're in a group, we're in a family, we're in a community, we need to kind of let other people make choices and agree and get along. She's like, nope, I'm Karen. I'm number one. I'm going to talk to your manager. I deserve more respect. You're not respecting me. And then she just storms off and leaves. It's like the guy who in Dusty's chat the other night pulls out his gun and starts firing bullets off into the nowhere because he gets so angry. He worked up. He's like, yeah, why are you giving this guy money? He's taking our stuff for free and you're giving away all the secrets. He got so worked up. And Lilith is saying, Adam, wrap your willy. Adam, I need to not have children. I need to know that I'm not going to be a mother. And Adam's like, you're going to be the mother. You're my wife. And this sort of rebellion from motherhood is what the Lilith feminist icon symbology seems to be explaining. This idea that modern woman
seems
needs
again
a job.
morphing because that's not even in the original story. Like they've now morphed that into that because I'm pretty sure you can get pregnant from other four positions besides missionary. Fairly sure that that's not how that works. You motherfuckers.
Pun intended.
Oh boy.
And
a little cat comedy right there.
Oh yeah, freaking just they're on nonsense right now because they're punching out. It's spring and like earlier in the show, they're literally alpacas in the garden. Like, are you serious right now? Like, because they're just ridiculous. D. Saccone had put in the chat about what do we do with this? Where do we go from here? So this is what this is we can understand that somebody's tried to lead you down this path, and this isn't the original path. So by looking at the original symbology of things, because I agree that symbology is the key to a lot of these things. But the thing is they've twisted all that symbology. So we start going back through and taking those things out of the symbology, and now we can see it for what it is, what it actually represents. And now we understand that we can start mapping our way back forward out of this path that somebody else has drug us down. Because we don't want to be there. It's not a great place. Look at how fucked up shit is. Look at these people like the Owen Benjamin fans in the chat. Like, where'd they come from again? It's been like years since I talked to any of those people. And it's like a herpes just flared back up. Like, what the fuck?
Well, here's the thing. What they did is they took the archetype of Lilith and they inverted it and they presented it in the modern culture as the divine feminine. This is anything but the divine feminine. Let's put it that way. This is not a feminine energy at all. This is a rebellious spirit of sorts that's behind this. So this goes counter to the natural order. And that's the important point. The image that is Lilith, the icon that is Lilith, the symbol, is all about the inversion process of the natural order of things. It's all about bringing about this new synthetic reality that people that have put this forward want to bring into being. It's a big fake. It's a big phony. It's the inverse of the natural order of things, of natural law. And this creation cannot tolerate that, plain and simply. But here's the thing. They want to build a new reality all around this wholly synthetic reality. And this translates into the transhumanist movement, really, at the end of the day, with all of that. That's essentially what they're building. And this has been described as the world of shells by those within the systems of Hermeticism and Kabbalah that are trying to bring forward some of the old original meanings of things. So what does this mean, the world of shells? They want to build a sort of new sub-reality of this natural world wherein there is no spirit inherent there. It's a world devoid of spirit. It's all about the manifestation of form, as it is here, matter. It's the hyper-materialist paradigm. It's the straw man identity. It's the forgery, the fake, the digital world, the digital reality, the metaverse. All of this stuff, all tied up in that idea. It's not divinely inspired. It is an inverse creation to that, and it is essentially hell on earth because it is devoid of spirit. So this is what is being brought into existence through the inversion of this symbol that is Lilith. And we could actually probably talk about what some of the older traditions that have emerged from Kabbalah now talk about with this, about the figure of Lilith and how it pertains to things that we understand today and what the spiritual side is of that is kind of negated in the story they give us about how she was Adam's first wife, when in fact that's not really the case when you explore this back further. So I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to discuss here going on or what.
I'm laughing because the Owen Benjamin fans doing nonsense in the chat just met Steve Mercer. He just came in smashing.
Shout out to Steve. I haven't heard from Steve in a long time. I hope he's doing well.
Oh, Steve's the shit. Steve's the shit. He came in with his hammer and just started laying waste. I 100%, and I would the groups that Wayne mentioned earlier, like the Theosophical Society. When you go and you actually study their charter, what their intention is their intention always was to subsume all religions, all myths, all cultures, and smush them into one thing, and then lead that thing forward. One of the easy examples of this is going to be like the Great White Brotherhood. They invented that entirely. Where basically it's like Super Friends, only it's mythological god figures, and they're all waiting up in Shambhala, which is this awesome place, waiting for things to get just horrible enough here for us, and then they're going to come down and just make it all awesome. Like they had to wait for it to get really bad for us to get really fuckered before they come do it. Like they can't just do it now. They're up there partying. But this is on purpose, so that way there's a very surface level understanding of anything, and you can just pick and choose whatever gods you want, like their Pokemon, and just start activating them. And here's the fact. Let's put a real mind to this. If you're this overwhelming, super powerful creature of any kind, whether you want to call them gods or anything, would you appreciate some creature that has no power compared to you just being like, hey, dude, come help me. Do this thing for me. And then you don't even hold a loyalty to him. You're like, oh, yeah, now that I'm done with this Pokemon card, oh, tomorrow I'm going to pick Isis, and then I'm going to pick this one and this one. And so in no way are you giving your energy to them in that way. So you're not actually being worshipful or anything to any of these beings. Why would they ever lend their power to you or listen to you or care in any way, shape, or form, you fucking ant, compared to a god? Like, why?
Yeah, essentially, when you think about it logically like that, what you're saying stands to reason. Why would, like, think of it from our point of view compared to an ant. Now, we have this ant that keeps coming and pestering us on our countertop or something in the kitchen. Keeps coming over to us and wants something. What are we going to do? We're going to squash that ant because it's a bother to us, and it's not convenient for us, and we don't understand what it wants anyway, and we have no relation to it. So it's the same kind of thing going on. So you have these occult fraternities and stuff. They like to invoke these different powers or things like that, archetypes, and pretend somehow they have some type of control over them. I am such a mighty powerful magician that I can call down such and such spirit or whatever to perform this duty for me. And that's how they kind of figure things work, but that's not how it is. What are you giving back in return? Well, I bind them. I use the magic circle and I bind them and I command them because I'm just such a great magician or something like that. These people are delusional. Let's put it that way. They're delusional. There's no all-powerful entity like that. There's no powerful entity that is going to serve you. You're providing something for them. Okay, that's the bottom line. And if you think you're not, you're deceiving yourself. You've been fooled in this way, and so many fall down that path. So you're absolutely correct. I've never found anything that points to this Great White Throne Brotherhood or the Great White Brotherhood or whatever they call themselves. There's no such thing. It was purely invented by the Theosophists. Because what they tried to do is they tried to take Eastern esoteric traditions and combine them with Western esoteric traditions, and they just don't jive all the way. So they came up with this system wherein their ascended masters can become some of the Great White Brotherhood and ascend to Shambhala, where they do important Shambhala things all the time because they can't be bothered with us. But someday they'll come help us. Yeah, they're up there partying in Shambhala, doing Shambhala important spiritual things or whatever. And the Theosophical Society, in the meantime, they established a company that was originally called the Lucifer Trust, now called Lucius Trust. And this is the main publishing house for the United Nations. The United Nations, and they have sway and influence in the United Nations. This is always what this group has been about, worldly power and control. And it's out there in their charter, like Ben was saying. And they have this relationship with the United Nations and, in turn, the World Health Organization and all of those other sub-organizations that work with the UN. And all of this has been pushed into the greater culture, the political spheres of things. If you think these secret society groups and occult fraternities don't have any influence in politics, you're sorely mistaken. They have an abundant amount of influence within that, because that's what they were founded for in the modern era. You see, they want to subvert society. They want control. They want to become gods in this place. They want to be able to wield that power that they so deviously seek after, that they can't have, and they don't really know the secrets. So now they're trying to implement technology to bring it about. And that's why we have this transhumanist movement, and we have all of these things coming to fruition. That's why they're out there trying to develop these technologies and do these things to change and alter the human being fundamentally. It's all part of this synthetic knockoff system, this world of shells that they're seeking to develop. So that's part and parcel of what goes on with it. And you'll find that a lot of these people in the influential spheres of the foundation of the Theosophical Society, they cross the bounds of many of these other secret society groups as well. They're all interconnected at the topmost levels, and that's what people seem to miss the boat on. Doesn't matter what occult fraternity or secret society you belong to, the topmost levels of it, it's the same couple of people floating around between these different groups that are the ones that influence things at the lower levels of these groups. This is kind of the inner circle within the inner circle, what would commonly be referred to as the Illuminati by people who research this.
Confirmed.
So there you go.
100% agree with this. 100% agree. And again, they've shifted everything away from the natural. So what's happened, in my opinion, on that, the great work, all these things are based on nature, and that so everything derives from alchemy. And the great work includes taking and burning out the ego, and then taking the sulfur and the salt and marrying them through the mercury. So you achieve this eternal life, this higher power through this natural process. I don't think that because they've failed to make it, I don't think that they can. And I think either do they. So they're trying to subvert this process and now go with this transhumanist, where you are now preserving the soul in something that you didn't have to go through the great work to achieve. You get to implant it into something, and that something can now be basically mechanically whatever you want it to be. You could be a boy, you could be a girl, because you're no longer actually tied to your DNA. And they're looking at you as just a basic energy. And even all this, in my opinion, you can see came forward from the same time period Wayne talked about at the beginning, where in the late 1800s, you had Elias Levi. It was the inventor of the what's his name? The
common Baphomet symbol.
Baphomet. Yeah. So this is something that's invented by Elias Levi and made by him. And this entire idea of hermaphrodism, it springs from that. And this is a real problem because that's not what the great work achieves. It does not make you hermaphroditic. Nothing's like that. It doesn't work like that. If you had a masculine energy before, you're going to have a masculine energy after, which isn't to say that if you isolate your specific energy, we can't then once again have it and say this portion of it is more feminine reacting and this portion is more masculine reacting. That's the way the world is. Anytime you take something and you isolate it out, once you've isolated it, now you can isolate again because you can find discrepancies between the things now that you've isolated it. We can take all the fucking white people and say, oh, let's just isolate white people. And now there's boys and girls. Let's isolate boys. Oh, now these boys are more feminine. These boys are more masculine. Well, you can just keep isolating and isolating. It's just how it fucking works. So understanding that doesn't mean that you're a hermaphrodite, or after achieving the great work, you're a hermaphrodite. That means that you have, in a perfect way, interlocked your masculine and feminine And the thing is that's even a misunderstanding in itself, in my opinion, because it's not the masculine and the feminine that are getting married. It's the two broken sides of the masculine. The masculine's actually getting healed unto itself. So the sulfur and the salt were both masculine. And the only feminine aspect in there is the mercury, and it's through the mercury that those two marry. And then the whole thing coagulates into, they come back together, and then the whole thing coagulates into one. And in that, typically, like when you look at an amalgamation, you can pull the mercury back off. Like,
it essentially what you're talking about, Ben, if I am understanding correctly, is at the core of all of it is what is known as the quintessence. Okay, we can pull that quintessence out over and over and over again, because that is the actual core of being. It's not about this masculine principle or feminine principle at the end of the day. Well, what these people, these dark occultists who run things in this world, the ones that have power and influence here, are trying to achieve is the removal entirely of that quintessence from the equation, and developing this world of shells devoid of any spiritual concern, devoid of the quintessence behind it. And that is what I find hugely compelling about all of this. It's taking what man truly is at his core and essence and removing it entirely and turning him into a synthetic being, a golem or a homunculus of sorts. That's what their version of the great work is all about. It's the inversion of what actually occurs within nature. So we do have, I think, if I'm understanding you correctly, this would be the unification of opposites, but it would still be both masculine sides of the equation. Whereas, in my view, and from the things I've researched about this, the feminine side will do the same thing on the spiritual side of the coin. The mirror image reflected from the spiritual realms or the invisible worlds into this reality here. You have the mirror process going on as well within that view of things. So when you understand this and know, it's always going to be an incomplete. There's never going to be that perfection on this side in the physical, is what I'm saying. It's all about transcending the physical and doing it in the spiritual as the mirror of the physical, and vice versa, as above, so below. So we have all of these different pairs of opposites, and I think it's important to study Hermeticism to understand some of this. So you have these polarities, and these people that try to do this are all about this unification of opposites, but they're just going about it in the strict physical sense here. They've tried to remove the quintessence from it, the spiritual portion from it. They're not doing the great work on the other side, on the spiritual planes, the invisible worlds. They're just trying to achieve the physical world of shells here and control that and exist here.
And basically trap their spirit in this without actually going and doing the whole transformation. 100%. Exactly. And Free Thinker 59, that isn't really on, Wayne. So Rockfin, anybody that didn't have their stuff turned on premium, they axed them. Like my channel on Rockfin, gone. And so because none of my stuff was on premium, thanks you to Steve. Steve put Wayne's Substack in there. Rockfin got real shady when their coin went under.
Rockfin did get real shady. I'm still on Rockfin, but I post very, very sporadically there. The best place to find me is actually on my website, www.alchemicaltechrevolution.com. And there's links to everything I do on there.
It's a real website. I've been there. There's content available. It's always there. Say the name of the website again.
www.alchemicaltechrevolution.com.
It's a good homepage. If you have a web browser and a computer, set it as your homepage. Just bookmark it, pin that tab, just keep refreshing. There's always great stuff coming out. Wayne, I discovered that you have a show you started back in December.
Oh, yes. That has been a hugely successful so far collaboration, and it's been an interesting ride. My friend Richard Willett from over in the UK and I started a new podcast called Synchromystic, where we take apart a lot of these different things that we're seeing happening in the world around us. And this is all based on a premise that I tried to put a name to. So I call this premise Synchromystic Metadata, where you could see these disparate bits of information out there in the greater information field, which I like to call the zeitgeist, and you could connect the dots to ostensibly make predictions about future events and to understand the intentions of current events and past events. And I think I've established good proof of concept with this in several different ways now. And we've taken this vantage point and put it in podcast form, and we've had a really fantastic response. So it's been pretty successful, and it's just entirely eye-opening to see some of the things that we could point out just using these disparate bits of information. Now, a lot of people might not be familiar with the concept of synchromysticism. I can't even talk. Synchromysticism, or concepts like revelation of the method or predictive programming, these kind of things. You could see, if you understand the language of symbology, you see certain things crop up over and over again out there, especially in the mainstream media. Now, as a prime example, and this is one Richard and I have taken apart for several different episodes now, going back a couple months, the one that we see currently going on is all of this symbology about the arisal of the foundation of a new Rome or Roman Empire, symbolized by the wolf. Remember
the dire wolf, the dire wolf was just gray wolves that they tweaked the DNA on. It wasn't actually dire wolves.
Right. And do you know what they named them? Romulus and Remus.
And then the sister too. Yeah.
Was there a third wolf?
Yeah,
there was a third wolf. But
yeah.
they named that one after the chick from Game of Thrones. So out there, they're already throwing a fiction in with the myth.
See, this is kind of fun though. This is a form of fan fiction. I kind of have a little theory here. I'd like to lay it on you. You talked a little bit about the large language models and the way that they have gathered all the available text documents on the internet, whether through legitimate means or otherwise. They've copied them, they've stored them, they've analyzed them, and then they've built the database of that. And with their large language model, you might call it a algorithmic intelligence, an artificial intelligence, analyzing the text, creating mind maps to link concepts together. And now there's this idea of a hallucination. So you go to Grok, DeepSeek, ChatGPT, and you say the letter A plus the number 2 equals what? So then the large language model will take, okay, you got a concept of a number, you got a concept of a letter, and then they'll mash them together and say these are probable, predictable answers. Do you remember using a cell phone and having like a T9 or some predictive text where you'd say, you type in how, you type in R, and then it would be you, and you just click the U and it'd complete your sentence. So this computer is not exercising intelligence, it's exercising pattern recognition and memory recall to say, statistically, you've got 3 words in a sentence. The 4th word is likely to be 1, 2, 3, ABC, and then it'll spit out those options. And then based off of other, what you are calling synchromystic metadata, and computers, robots, web crawlers, search engines, Google, Yahoo, Lycos, Dogpile, remember? All these things would search the internet. They'd crawl through the text files on a website and say, what is the metadata? What is the keyword? What is the topic? And whether or not it is fiction or nonfiction, it doesn't matter. So we have a library of all the available books, including Nintendo Power Magazine, GameFAQs, cheat codes for World of Warcraft. Everything gets put into the same blender, and everything sort of has equal weight in terms of its legitimacy. So in terms of like Wikipedia citations, if you have a citation, you're available on Wikipedia. Can you cite yourself? You can cite yourself. So if you have a book and your citation is another book that you wrote, but you haven't written it yet, you see where this leads. And in recent news,
right, that's called hallucination, correct?
Yes, it's A plus B equals, it could be these options, choose the one that you like best. It's a choose your own adventure novel, forgetting the fact that this is a fan fiction novel role-playing experience. You're hallucinating a reality. The experience feels real. The chat bot is affirming your message, your beliefs, your feelings and things, and telling you this is great. If you argue with the chat bot and say, no, that is wrong, then it will spit out 3 other facts that you can choose to accept into your working system.
Precisely. So you understand the basic technological explanation of what this is. Well, now apply that to the greater information field that exists all around us, the zeitgeist, the spirit of the time that we exist in the actual natural creation. What they've done is some intelligence or force or energy or being somewhere, whether it be a human being or I think there's a beyond human intelligence involved with this, has populated the information field with a lot of these synchromystic clues, which point to events that are coming about in the world. And perhaps it's helping to produce those events by focusing people's energies on that. And this is what I've been pointing out. This is what I refer to as synchromystic metadata, because in our technological society, we understand the term metadata. We know what that's about. It's not directly something that is direct data for you, like concrete data, but it's metadata that leads you to the concrete data when it gets down to the brass tacks of all of it. So what has happened is we have this information field around us. You could call it what you want. People differ to the term that they like to call it. The scientists might call it the quantum information field or genetic memory, epigenetic memory, things like that. The occultists will call it the Akashic record and various things like that. I prefer the term zeitgeist because there is a spiritual component to it, and that does simply mean spirit of the time. So if you find these disparate
monkey style.
What is that?
100 monkey style.
Exactly, yeah. So it's the same kind of thing going on. So this information's out there, and it has an indelible effect on the unconscious human mind that somehow comes to fruition through the subconscious and later alters conscious behavior, and might be something that they are able to leverage and use to manufacture new I guess what's the best way to describe this, new concepts into the world, or new things happening in the greater consciousness field, if you will, if you want to call it that. It brings about manifestation of whatever it is that the programmer who's putting the bits of metadata out there wants to come to fruition, because people will focus their energy on it, their unconscious mind energy on it, and it brings it into fruition. So that's essentially the concept that explains this synchromystic type thing that goes on. And as I was alluding to, I was talking about the emergence of this dire wolf situation and how the wolf, being the symbol of Rome, is not an accident. They put that out there. They actually named the wolves Romulus and Remus. And then a couple days later, and this was after Richard and I did the first broadcast on this whole notion of the dire wolf, then this little clip, I'll play you the audio, shows up on a news program called Inside Edition. And who's it about? It's about Elon Musk. Give this a listen.
Is Elon Musk planning to father a legion of super babies? According to his newest baby mama, Ashley St. Clair, the world's richest man dreams of having enough children to save civilization. Ashley St. Clair is speaking out today, revealing the results of a paternity test that she says proves with 99.99% certainty that Musk is the father of her 7-month-old son. Just 2 weeks ago, Musk wrote, "I don't know if the child is mine or not. Here he is," Ashley says, in a New York hospital holding baby Romulus right after he was born. Musk has had at least 14 children with 4 women, 10 boys and 4 girls. Hey, his 4-year-old little X is the most visible. They go everywhere together, including the UFC event last weekend. And get this, according to the Wall Street Journal, multiple sources said they believe the true number of Musk's children is much higher, and he wants more. Ashley says that Musk suggested they use surrogates to make more babies faster, to reach legion level before the apocalypse. She claims he solicits women to have his babies on his social media app X. One woman says she turned him down.
He wants legion, does he?
Of his harem drama. Musk talked about his love of baby making at a recent conference in Saudi Arabia.
I know you've been doing your part to maintain the birth rate in the U.S.
Yes, I am. I do have a lot of kids, and I encourage others to have lots of kids.
We reached out to Elon Musk for comment, but did not hear back.
And that's a mainstream news program. Notice his child, his 14th child, is named Romulus. Now, is that a coincidence? This is what I'm talking about with Synchromystic metadata. It's out there. It's been out there since at least January, this whole pointing to the reemergence of a new Roman Empire, and then the death of the Pope comes about, and we have a new Pope, and he took on the name Leo the 14th. Now, if you want to talk about the combination of the symbol of the lion and the wolf together, what that represents, it opens a whole new can of worms and reaffirms this whole notion of a new Roman Empire, and that, of course, will shift gears over here to America, because now it's an American Pope. And I've taken this apart, and Richard and I have done episodes on this, and I've done stuff on my own, talking about that connection being made here and how it represents an alchemical wedding of sorts. It's the alchemical wedding of the church and state. So you have this Roman Empire represented by the lion, or represented by the wolf, sorry, and now you have the new Pope who took on the name Leo, the lion, the red lion, and Ben will know what I'm talking about, the red lion, in the alchemical working. And you have this combination of things going on, and I've done a whole series talking about things leading up to this, how the alchemical encoding is out there everywhere in this Synchromystic metadata. And all you have to do is look at that painting of King Charles that came out about a year ago. You remember that? The Red King?
Sausage fingers?
Yeah, the Red King. The picture of the Red King and how that all relates to this. And, of course, his mother was Queen Elizabeth, who had passed away. The White Queen, by the way, there's another homage there for Ben that Ben, I'm sure, will understand. The White Queen, the Red King.
These are all just phases of performing the
processes. Exactly. Yeah. And all of this stuff has been encoded and pre-echoed out there in the zeitgeist. And we're seeing some of this stuff coming to fruition right now. And of course, they were talking about the installation of Trump as the president once again. And the very first day of the brand new year, they had those terror attacks in front of the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans, where the guy plowed a truck with an ISIS flag on it into people, an electric vehicle, an electric truck. And then simultaneously in Vegas, in front of Trump Tower, somebody lit a Tesla Cybertruck on fire. You remember that? When all that happened? This was all pre-echoing this. And then later on at that Caesars Superdome, where not coincidentally the Super Bowl was held, for the first time in American history, a sitting president attended the Super Bowl there. Trump at Caesars Superdome. All of these things encoding this arisal of a new Roman Empire. So,
I mean, in fairness, it was the first time that the Super Bowl had been held there. But right. yes, it is significant that a sitting president went there for the Super Bowl. That's correct. But it's not like there had been a storied tradition of, for 63 years, we've had the Super Bowl here. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a sitting president went and attended. It was the first and, as far as I know, only time. So that may have more significance than if it had always been that way. I don't know. But it does, like, the clarification as far as that goes is kind of important.
Exactly. And that's the whole point. Like, all of these things have been pre-echoed out there. And if you know how to read the data field, you could connect the dots and see what it is they're trying to build with this. So this is the intention embedded in the greater information field with this Synchromystic metadata. So that's kind of the concept that I've been trying to convey to people. I've come up with a name for it because, as we discussed earlier in the program, if you can give a thing a name, that gives you a type of control over it or power over it. So therefore, if we give this a name, and now we have a system to work from, and we can understand this a little better, we could maybe make some changes to things going on around us. We could remove our consent from their systems they're trying to build and implement. If you see the magician's trick, you don't fall for it, right? And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to point this stuff out to people because I think it's important.
I got a few things that I'd like to point out, and maybe we can play this synchro metadata game. I got a few things to build upon your initial ideas. I'd like to bring your attention to the relationship between one Elon Musk and one Trump. You know, what is a Trump? When you play a Trump card, what does that mean? And with a name like El on El, what is El from the Old Testament? Is that a god? El Elyon?
El Elyon, and I'm glad you brought that up because I actually, for the first time, my podcast is not an interview-based podcast. The first time I actually interviewed a guest who her friend was listening to my podcast, and she reached out to me and said, I have a friend who needs to talk to you. And not knowing anything about this, I had produced some shows connecting Elon Musk to not only Petrus Romanus, but Rosemary's Baby as well. And this lady, she finally contacts me because her friend said, you need to talk to this guy after I produced that. And she contacts me, and she claims to be Elon Musk's former babysitter, nanny, and that she knew his family, and that his grandfather, who is actually legitimately known to be one of the heads of the Technocracy movement in Canada at that time, who allegedly died in a plane crash in like 1974. She said he was alive and well until at least 1983. And she tells the whole story. And this is actually, I even have it on my
Haldeman,
YouTube
right?
channel. Yeah. Haldeman. Nathan Haldeman, I think is his name. Well, she said he was involved at the Presidio with various things, and he was working with some different government programs. And she claims her grandfather was actually a bookkeeper for Project Paperclip. And that's how she got involved with this kind of stuff, and her family was involved with it. And it's an interesting story, and she is a survivor of satanic ritual abuse and this kind of thing.
How do you
I gave her a
determine
platform. Well, that's what her claim is, I should say.
Okay.
That's what she claims. But some of the things she was talking about, you really wouldn't know unless you're a diehard conspiracy researcher or you lived through it.
Yeah.
And I have no reason to disbelieve what she told me.
Wait,
because she really hasn't got anything from it.
I'm not trying to slight her story or take away from what she went through. I'm just like I'm a curious sort, and
me too, man.
I respect who you are as a researcher, and so I'm legitimately curious as to what like your particular process is for vetting that.
Well, see, that's the thing. I made it abundantly clear. I have no way of validating the things she's saying one way or the other. So I just wanted to give her audience so that she could tell her story. And honestly, she has no reason to share her story. She hasn't gained anything financial or anything from it. It's just she wanted to tell the world about what's going on.
I had a guy on my show who claims that DB Cooper was his father. And he's got every legitimate claim in the world to that. And he's been interviewed by the FBI a couple of times. And like it might be that his father was it might be, and I certainly treated him. I did the Art Bell thing. Yeah, come on, dude. I'll give you a platform to talk about whatever you want to talk about. We'll talk about it. If there's something super weird, I might push back. I'm going to ask some questions, but I'm going to treat you like a human being, and you're going to have respect. And at the end of it, you're going to get to tell your story, and then we'll move forward.
Exactly. And I did the same kind of thing out of courtesy because I think it's a story that really needs to be told first and foremost. And I invite anybody, go listen to it. It's on my website. It's out there on Substack. It's out there on Spotify. It's on YouTube. It's everywhere all over. And it's compelling the way she tells the story Like you could tell she really had some bad things happen to her in her background, and she lives off grid in Oregon or something, and has trouble paying her bills and everything, and can't live a normal lifestyle, supposedly because of these connections and stuff she had. But she wanted to warn people about Elon Musk because she firmly believes, and she was allegedly told, that he will be the one to introduce the mark of the beast.
Well, and Elon had for a while had a chunk of property in rural Oregon that happened to butt up against a friend of a friend's property. I never got to go to the property to meet Elon. I've been to the property, never when he was there, like next door. God, I wanted to, dude. Oh, I wanted to. Oh,
so all I want to say about the situation is I've seen this coming. And Elon might have 14 kids, but you got to understand, every good Germanic is worth 10 or 15 Romans. That's just historical fact.
So what are the South Africans? They're the Dutch, right? What are the Dutch worth as far as a German goes?
Not much.
Okay. Because they're hella big, dude. The Dutch are they're the tallest people in Europe.
Yeah, that's why you carry an axe. You just down. And so I got 7 kids myself. He's got
because they build dikes doesn't mean they're all dikes, Ben. Come on, give them a little respect.
I've been trying like hell to make more. I don't know what's going on. I'll keep trying though.
Seems shallow. It does.
Anyway, to get back on topic here, the reason I brought that up, though, is because you had mentioned El Elyon.
Yes.
And she claims that was Elon's original name.
Yes.
And it means Lord God Most High or something like that.
Yeah.
Is what that means. And his mother, May Musk, who she called Aunt Light, told her that she needs to call him that name. And it wasn't until later that he changed his name, according to her story, to Elon and shortened it from El Elyon.
The Presidio was mentioned. Was that in connection to 1983 and Nathan Heldeman?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was working at the Presidio at certain points or with military intelligence with some programs related to MK Ultra or something like that, is what she had claimed. Now, he historically, and this is recorded in the record, allegedly died in a plane crash in 1974. But she claims he faked his death and that he was working for the U.S. government because they didn't want his
own death.
Yeah, because they didn't want him
to continue or to then take a position for the U.S. government.
I don't
or was that made clear?
I don't recall like what she said or what the details are.
What was his background
I don't even know
prior to that? Like, what was he involved in that would lead up to him necessitating faking his own demise?
Well, he was in a lot of trouble with the Canadian government because he was involved with I think it was a corporation. It was a political movement or something called Technocracy.
Yeah.
Literally called Technocracy. So they literally... They kicked him out of Canada.
Down. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
And this is absolutely historical fact. So he got kicked out of Canada. So she was relating the idea that he faked his death and then he was working for the U.S. government under some secret program. And she only knew about it because her grandfather was a bookkeeper for Project Paperclip.
So did he go to South Africa first, establish the family, and then disappear? Or how did the family get to South Africa if the patriarch was on the lam?
Well, see, that's the thing. He traveled and he had citizenship.
So he went to South Africa first.
I think so. I'm trying to remember. If you look at the mainstream historical account, it traces him to Canada, South Africa, and this is actually May Musk.
Yeah.
May Musk's father.
I'm quite familiar. Yeah, I've done a bunch of work on the technocrats in Canada as far as that goes. Yeah.
He's got special words for it and everything. Technocratic panopticon.
Oh, yeah. Those are all great words. I use those words, too.
We love these keywords. I heard Presidio, and I'm like, oh, wait, I got to know about that. What's
I'm a fucking bridge away from a Presidio in San Francisco. I'm on the non-gay side of the.
Well, if you want to scrutinize, what she had said, Go listen to the interview because she spills a lot of beans in the interview about
No, I'm
she makes claims on.
fascinated by this, man. Truly, yeah,
That
absolutely.
is the call to action. Let's all download that, preserve it, put on USB
Yes,
drives.
he's probably gonna go
save
looking
that
for the
metadata.
thing.
Yeah, see, I think my audience, I'm just small enough that I could get away with doing things like that and not getting like shut down or anything at this point yet. I've kind of flown under the radar with a lot of these things, so I do reach a lot of people, but it's still not what it should be if the algorithms were fair. Let's put it that way.
Well, I'd like to bring it back full circle because we got to Elon, his family tree a little bit, genetics, and mentioning Presidio. There's another figure, Aquino, and his wife, partner, her code name being Lilith.
Gee, isn't that interesting, huh?
Mm-hmm. So we'll let the people go to Dogpile and do some searching to figure out what details and facts and other Synchromystic metadata points they can put on their bulletin board and start connecting the lines together, and whether or not something is actual, factual, true, or a LARP, a live action roleplay ritual thing. It's all part of the metadata with meaning and significance. We're talking about synchronicities, and those are usually like personal dream journals, and this means something to me in my map of my dream cartography, and I'm putting all this stuff together. It's very navel gazing and inward looking, and that's one thing. I had one more comment I wanted to get into a little bit before I forget. I got all these notes I'm taking. We were talking a little bit earlier about some of the hierarchies of occult orders, so like OTO or Golden Dawn, or just some witches coven you might join through a Facebook group because you know somebody and you just want to be a local, pagan festival thing in the park. And this idea of like God forms, invocation, evocation, worship. But then we have this new concept of TikTok witch, baby witch influencer who's like, you know what? I'm a pretty cool person, man. I'm going to work with Lilith. So me and Lilith are on the same level. We are co-workers. It's this energy to say, I'm not the assistant to the assistant manager. I am co-managing my life with Lilith, or I'm co-managing my life with Lucifer, or whatever Pokemon or God form from World of Warcraft or whatever video game. What do you think about this idea of I'm working with this spirit, like one-on-one? We're on the same level. This hierarchy thing, we're on the same level.
Well, what I would say about that is there are a lot of people that are, first of all, delusional in those regards, and secondly, there probably is some type of an evil spiritual influence involved in some of that, and this has to do with the archetype of Lilith as well as the archetype of Samael, because when you get back into the Kabbalistic traditions prior to the adoption of this story of Lilith being Adam's first wife, you find that actually there was a spiritual mirror image of Adam and Eve, and this was Samael and Lilith in the spiritual realms, and that they had this type of reptilian essence to them, and the combination of the two is called tannin ivor in the tradition. When they mate, allegedly, the story according to Kabbalah is that when they mate, that all the worlds will be destroyed, so they had to be separated, and this is one of the stories that goes with the Kabbalistic tradition, so that what they've done in essence, if you actually research this stuff through what's claimed by many of the occultists about this, you find that what they do is they actually will indwell a human being, a human body, and copulate that way, the both of them. And this is what the story is. So this is all about demonic possession in doing some of these sexual acts. So maybe we're seeing manifestations of this in the modern day, and maybe people are deluded enough to think they're involved with something good and they're allowing a walk-in of this sort. But at any rate, I have to actually take a couple minutes and step away, gentlemen. So.
Oh no, that's 2 hours is all we expect. All we expect, brother. If you're good for
sure.
tonight, then...
All right, man. Well, I should probably take off then, but I could come back and talk for a couple more minutes.
Oh,
but
if you want to come back, 100%, come on back.
Yeah, but let me just run. I'll come back in just a couple of minutes and
take a short intermission. And come
yeah,
back.
I can't stay for too
Let's all
much
go
longer.
to the lobby.
For an encore.
All right.
Let's all go to the
Be right back.
lobby.
Sure.
Let's all go to the lobby and have ourselves a snack.
I had some Dresden Dolls songs lined up to play. Do you guys know Dresden Dolls?
Oh yeah, I do.
You guys know Amanda Palmer?
No.
She's the singer in the band The Dresden Dolls.
I didn't know who the Dresden Dolls
like,
were either.
not personally.
Okay.
I just couldn't remember the name to say that.
I have a clip that kind of introduces her and kind of what she sings about.
Try and get kicked off YouTube?
Well, I could summarize the clip, or I could just show you the video of it and say what she's saying.
Just show us the video.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
It's a very visual video. I want to show you.
Of course it is.
And then I want you to sing it, Marcus.
Right?
Yeah. So get him to the Greek.
Karaoke night on Deliberating Dogface, dudes. Marcus is going to take it away with a little bit of Russell Brand.
So yeah, what did he say?
You look kind of same too. Look, just kind of go like this.
Russell Brand is going to be singing "Come Sail Away." So Marcus is going to be singing "Come Sail Away" in Russell Brand's voice. And if that doesn't happen, you're allowed to drive to Minnesota, hunt him down, and smack him in the face with a mackerel.
I'm ready. Domo.
Live mackerel.
Domo.
Yeah. You got to watch out, though, because he will probably try to eat it. So you got to be quick.
Domo. Arigato, Mr.
Throw minnows at him. Go get a little pail. Scoop up a bunch of minnows, distract him, huck a whole bunch of minnows at him, and then over the top. With the mackerel. After a series of distraction minnows.
Okay, here's some Russell Brand.
Is authentic experience and how you can transfer that. I like what you said about realizing that you don't have to yield to a pre-existing paradigm of what performance is supposed to be, that once you're in that place you can just sort of go, I'll just do what I want, I'll just say what I like, particularly if you understand your own intention well. What do you think, what is your intention in that space other than exploration of the last 7 years of various forms of suffering that you've described?
Various forms of suffering. To be an artist requires great suffering, according to Russell Brand.
Part of the suffering was obviously with her fucking hairstylist. What the fuck? Did she get into it with like a fucking one of them sucky fucking haircut things that they cut things that they used to sell back in the day? And like
she's a pet detective.
It doesn't just cut, it sucks.
She's worked in the field of pet detectivery.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes. Okay, so let's hear her answer. Her answer is she's thinking long and hard about it.
Well, there's probably a lot of intentions all intermingling, but I think the main one is to remind people that they're not alone. I mean, there's so little discussion, particularly around the topics of what it feels like to have an abortion, or to choose an abortion, or to have to make decisions about reproductive things, and and it's the same with miscarriage. It's just not something people
except it's not.
Yeah, except for miscarriage happens, and most people are heartbroken over it. And abortion, you chose it, and you're Lilith, and it's empowering.
Right, and look, that's not even like, that's not to say that you couldn't conceivably abort a child and then be like, oh wow, dude, it sucks that I lost or gave up my child. That's something that could certainly
I lost or
theoretically
gave
happen.
up. Do you mean
But I
murdered
think what
the
Ben's
child
trying,
while it
yeah,
was in the
I
stomach?
think what Ben's trying to say is a delineation between regret and legitimate loss and or theft.
Yeah,
you know, like that's a miscarriage truly is the theft of a child, whereas an abortion is a deliberate taking of life for convenience.
see, and that's the thing is now you have to deal with that aspect of it and admit to that aspect of it, that no matter how bad you feel about it, you did that on purpose.
Yeah,
she's come to terms with that through her art, through her song lyrics,
not through her hair.
We can just listen to her for like 20 more seconds.
Nothing looking at that shit.
She goes on to explain how over the course of her life she had her first abortion at 17. She's had a second and third.
Yeah, because most, what is it, something like 68% or some shit like that of women that have one have a second and a third.
Oh, without a doubt, dude. I had a friend back when I lived in Santa Cruz County that unironically referred to her pussy as a haunted house because of how many abortions she'd had.
Gross.
Yeah, like with and I mean, look, dude, she was pretty fucking dead inside. She was a hardcore broad.
Amanda Palmer,
but I mean, without hesitation. And if I may, real quick, since we were on the subject of Russell Brand,
yes,
I feel obligated to do this.
People don't like Donald Trump because he's an ethereal gladiator of justice, protecting the fickle fabric of the universe.
Russell, the allegations have just come out.
Ugh. I'm Christian. I've been redeemed. I'm forgiven. That's good timing, isn't it?
Well, Mary was a bit of a sore, wasn't she?
Russell, the allegations.
Oh, yeah. Hallelujah. What do you think about these new Instagram handles? I've got BAB, Born Again Brandy, GWR, Goody Woody Whistle.
What about the essay?
Shining Apostle. Love it. Praise him.
Russell?
Yeah?
We need to talk about the allegations.
I can't. Sorry, it's getting to the clappy wappy bit of Shine Jesus the Shine.
Can't ignore the clappy wappy bit.
I've got one more. What was that? What do you think of this baptism pic?
I think people should have a choice whether they
tidy whities.
Should they? I better get off to confession then.
Russell, the allegations.
I can't, I'm afraid. I'm reading Deuteronomy 30:16. Totally appropriate gap, by the way.
Russell.
Sorry, I'm just converting someone on the phone.
Can we do what in tongues, you cheeky minx?
Pray? Yeah, that sounds great. A furious, flamboyant, feminine
No,
wizard.
Russell, this is wrong. You can't just conveniently convert to a religion to shield yourself against things you've done wrong.
Sorry, God's on the line. What's that? Signal's not very good. All right, God, stay on the prayer. I'm just going to step outside.
Russell.
Go very far away.
Russell.
That's great. And I think Russell needs to maybe have a conversation with Neil Gaiman, who's had many allegations against him.
Neil
so that's
is
the connection.
in trouble, man.
So from Amanda Palmer to Neil Gaiman to accusations of weird lifestyle choices.
For someone whose last name is Gay Man, he sure did bang a lot of underage pussy.
Oofta.
Yeah.
Oofta.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Didn't know being an author had that kind of pull.
Dude, if all you do is write books for quote unquote young adults and tweens, you're only going to be surrounded by young adults and tweens, and then the 843-pound blue-haired fucking adults that still read your kids' books as grown-ups.
Well, like I never read Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, Margaret Weiss, gotta get me a piece of that. I don't even know what they fucking look like.
I look, the vast majority of the authors that I enjoy reading all pee standing up. I have no interest in them anyway. The ones that sit down to pee are pretty fucking like scarred and horrific as far as that goes. You know,
In the fantasy world, there's some real. I would
shit.
say it's about
There's a couple of cuties. There's
70-30. I would say 70-30 good male authors as compared to good female authors. I think that about 30% in the fantasy world. There's some real fire ones.
This is kind of an ongoing conversation. I'd like to kind of open up this can of worms. There's this idea of separating.
You know what was a can of worms earlier? Did you see the girls getting into it about whether it requires an orgasm to? Well, and the one never said it required it, but said that that's more likely to achieve orgasm or to get pregnant if the woman achieves orgasm, which I 100% agree. And if you've never gotten a girl, like that thing turns into a. It's like. It turns into a vortex. It's grabbing it. Like there's no doubt that that's the pregnancy maker.
The level of hedonism, Neil Gaiman, author of Sandman, who's gone on to have his work produced to a Netflix level series. This is kind
like
of where he's
a fucking retarded gorilla. Just
there's a talk of separating the art from the artist and saying, well, I can still continue to read all of these authors despite this one weird quirk about them. Okay. The conversation that I would like to have going forward is this idea of if our media is written by imperfect people, that's putting it lightly. There's another category of imperfect people. We might call them actual psychopaths, narcissists, egotists, weird occultists with really bad ideas that are implanting their ideas into their work. So from the very foundation of the moral fiber of the character of the person writing the work, they publish the work. The question I'm asking is, going forward, and I'm going to connect this to this AI hallucination thing where, computers cannot create new work. They can remix music, they can mash up 3 different songs and then skirt the copyrights and the trademarks and the brand recognition and say, well, it sounds new because it hasn't been made before. So moving forward, there's a need for authors to write stories that are not from a perspective that is based off of Kabbalah or the Ben Sira or the Gobble Gobble book of whatever it was written by a turkey's quill that he mentioned earlier. So going forward with foundational ideas that are solid and align with natural philosophy, the ideas of not inverting everything. So many of these stories are now about, the good guy's actually the bad guy, the inverse of the hero's journey type of thing, where we want to celebrate the villain. Joker's actually a character we can relate to. Joaquin Phoenix played a character that we can understand. It's like Taxi Driver. We can relate to that. This type of thing. Maleficent and Disney adults, they love Maleficent.
Into that, right? Aren't we? Sorry, I didn't mean to
keep going
midstream. I apologize. Go ahead.
I pinched it off. We're good.
But no, I mean the anti-hero thing, because I mean the as early as 92, right? Mm-hmm. We're watching Reservoir Dogs. They were all anti-heroes who were all somehow also kind of the heroes, except for the cop who got killed, and he was only not a hero because he was a cop. And that just for the next we had a progression of the anti-hero. This is also right at the dawn of the grunge era, which in terms of popular music or music that was at least prolific in the mainstream, the grunge era specifically kind of heralded the anti-hero, or the reluctant rock star. I would rather have my CIA girlfriend blow my brains out and call it a suicide than be famous rock star. Sorry, we're on YouTube. Unaliving. Courtney Love was directly connected to the Central Intelligence Agency through her father. Look it up.
Real easy.
All right, I'm back. What did I miss?
Us being goofballs mostly.
We watched a
we
video.
were about to do our best Eddie Vedder impression, but now that you're here, go ahead and kick us off, Wayne.
We tried to make Marcus sing a song as Russell Brand in Russell Brand voice.
I was supposed to sing "Come Sail Away," but instead I sang "Mr. Roboto" because I was more technocratically themed. And then I showed a video of Russell Brand interviewing Amanda Palmer from the Dresden Dolls, and Amanda Palmer, as a solo artist, writes a lot of music about bodily autonomy. She
when people start talking with English accents, I just zone out.
That's fair.
Amanda Palmer really believes in the sacrament and the ritual religious rights to have abortions for
Before we
everyone.
go further, I want to go on record saying the only Palmer I believe in is Laura Palmer, made David Lynch. Rest her soul.
Also Rosie.
Noted.
That's
Yes.
Ben's favorite right there.
Yes, Laura Palmer, David Lynch. Great story. Girl, blue rose wrapped in plastic. We love that. It's good stuff. Amanda Palmer, being this independent woman she is, kind of has some sway in the goth subculture communities, which Venn diagram intersect with, Wiccan and pagan ideas and witchcraft and Gardnerian things and occult stuff like baby witch stuff, first rituals and spells, and the movie The Craft. So Amanda Palmer and the Dresden Dolls, her solo work writing about bodily autonomy, using a clothes hanger as a way to remove an unwanted human life, this type of stuff. It gets very, very graphic and dramatic, and it's sort of this punk rock cabaret performance. So this idea of women taking back this word witch to make it into a positive connotation, to say that a witch is a good thing. I'm going back to this idea of Lilith, who was kicked out of the party. She says she left on her own terms. She couldn't live in the current situation, so she just went.
She was a strong, independent woman, and she didn't need no man.
She left the garden where all the fruit was growing, and she had all the food provided to her. She left that life to go pursue an independent music career where she could spread her legs underneath a keyboard, playing music, punk rock cabaret, and then going on Kickstarter and asking her fans for money. There's this whole allure and legend and mythos around Amanda Palmer, who's kind of this embodying Lilith figure of female empowerment. And so many young women listen to this music, not understanding what the illusions and the song lyrics are.
The Goo Goo Dolls?
Is Amanda Palmer the current generation's Tori Amos? Like, I'm really missing something here.
She'd like to be. I think she'd like to be kind of the voice of this generation.
She couldn't pull off Cornflake Girl, but Lilith probably could if she humped the piano stool just right.
Her first song is called Coin Operated Boy. It's about putting a coin into a toy, and it rumbles between her legs and makes her feel a certain way.
Just buy a fucking motorcycle, broad. Fucking kick rocks. Nobody cares.
So the theme is hedonism.
Harleys are cheap these days.
Sexual pleasure.
They really
without
are.
procreation. And the songs that celebrate that lifestyle, to say, you know what, you can have all the pleasure without the responsibility of childbirth and motherhood.
When has that not been a prevalent theme in popular music, though?
Well, it's all pointing toward this hyper-materialist paradigm. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's about the fulfillment of this world of shells, the body, the form, devoid of spirit, not worrying about all of that. It's not about maintaining some type of accountability to a moral or ethical code of any sort. That's what these people have firmly ensconced into popular culture, this notion of moral relativism, that there's no absolute standard of right or wrong, so whatever feels good, do it. And that's what they push and promote, and that seems to be part of the emphasis behind this Lilith ideology at this point in the modern feminist movement. So that being the case, you could understand that these type of people are going to emerge in that situation and have influence on this younger generation. And we're living in this generation now that, first of all, they have no attention span whatsoever. It's like the attention span of a goldfish, literally. So it's the TikTok generation. And boy, things have degenerated quite quickly here over the course of the past 20 years, because we had the YouTube generation that came up, and now the attention spans on this one's even worse. And they just rehash other people's work and call it their own. Like, one thing that aggravates me on TikTok is the people sitting there doing this and pointing to somebody else's hard work, and then they're getting millions of views and getting a paycheck for doing that. It aggravates me to no end, and it's just like, you're retarded. I'm sorry, you're gay and retarded. I could use those words, can't I? I could call something gay and retarded and not feel bad about it. I don't.
I mean, we're on YouTube, but we're on YouTube in Donald Trump's America, Wayne.
Yeah.
In 2025. So I do kind of feel like we can, you know,
we can say gay and
down
retarded
on the table a little bit and be
Yeah,
like,
we just can't say small hat stuff.
Right.
Like,
Right. But we
like,
can't
you know,
say gay.
yeah, when they flip it around, then you gotta recensor yourself, you know, in the other direction.
There are a couple of no words as far as YouTube goes. Everywhere else, we're fine. We're fine.
We appreciate creative euphemisms. We appreciate gosh golby good boy language that really cleans up and
Good boy
sanitizes.
language?
Yes, good boy language. We don't want to use bad boy language.
I use nothing but good boy language for the most part, so it's all good.
I cuss like a pirate.
Yeah.
Well, this is the church plus state thing, and that is, I got to ask you. You said church plus state. Is it church plus state equals nanny state and Sunday school teacher slapping you on the wrist?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but you'll notice that there seems to be this emergence of spiritual concerns in Western culture, once again, especially here in America. And a lot of this stuff has been engineered in a certain direction. And I'm thinking of that document, that plan from the Heritage Foundation that came about during the election cycle that had all the liberals losing their friggin' minds. And they're seeing some of this stuff actually come into fruition right now in the political spectrum of things, where they're seeing people moving back towards traditional values and stuff like that. And
serious.
Going away from woke culture, if you want to call it.
It's serious. And I think that was always the plan, because I think
absolutely.
I think that they had to go completely crazy with the liberalism in order to get people to accept the jackboot, because there's so many people now that are like, it's just reached this. It's very much entered the public zeitgeist, where it's the Prometheus, give the fire back. Only the gods have this, you know. So like religiously, while you're seeing Christianity shrink, you're seeing like on a whole, you're seeing Orthodox Christianity grow by leaps and bounds, where it's extremely structured and you don't get to think, you know, anything. You can't even read the Bible and interpret it for yourself. You have to go and ask somebody else how to interpret what was said.
And that's where the emergence of this new pope comes in, because it's going to be a step back towards Catholic traditions and traditional values and things like that. And we're seeing a step towards that already with this new pope. So even though fundamentally he wasn't much different than Pope Francis on his stances on things, it seems that he has come and taken a step back towards more traditional Catholic values, whereas he came out recently, a couple days ago or something, and said something to the effect that a family is a man and a woman and their children or something like that.
I know that
traditional.
I know that he's Pope Bab from Chicago, but he's also, you know, Roberto from Peru.
Right.
And Roberto from Peru recognizes a man and a woman, even if Bob from Chicago had to sit there and give mass to some very funny looking fellas. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So this is part of the engineered plan. They want to bring back these type of more traditional values and spiritual concerns back to America. And this has to do with the foundation of this new Roman Empire idea that I was alluding to earlier as well. So you can see how you could connect the dots between all of this stuff and see the inroads into that going on. And it's been in the works. And we've been introduced this idea from this, what is it, the Agenda 2025 or whatever they were calling it, this plan from the Heritage Foundation that he was running on. I forget the name of the document, but Project 2025 or whatever. But the liberals were losing their friggin' minds over this and talking about how it's going to be like the Handmaid's Tale and all of this stuff. And they're seeing some real world effects going back towards these traditional values,
and
which really is bringing into question
lack
their
of
belief systems.
sandwiches.
There is a distinct lack of sandwiches. I always complain about that.
My wife,
damn you, Heritage Foundation! You only got the robe and the bonnet right. You fucked up on the sandwiches.
The sandwiches are the more important part.
It's critical. Heritage Foundation key. Do better.
So, what is a handmaiden? What is it? The tale? Is that a Philip K. Dick story?
I've never watched the movie. I know it was a popular movie for a time, and I know it was based on a book, but I'm not sure who wrote it or
was
what
it
exactly.
A Philip K. Dick book? And did Philip K. Dick talk about the Roman Empire never ended, the Black Iron Prison, this type of thing? You're saying that there's this Roman thing going on with Trump and the Pope and the Church and the state. Is this Roman Empire never ended thing, Black Iron Prison, connected to Gnostic ideas? Are we living in a simulation? What's going on, man?
I don't buy that we're living in a simulation, but you could look and see the Roman Empire never really fell. It just kind of transformed into the Vatican, and the Holy Roman Empire took over and has spread its wings throughout the world. But if you look into the study of eschatology and biblical end time studies, you find that there has to be a second world empire that emerges. And I think the death of Pope Francis really signaled the end of the first run of the Roman Empire, because the church, the Catholic Church, has been in shambles for a long time. And now all their hopes rest upon this new Pope. And it seems like if they're turning back to more traditional type things, values, morals, ethics, this kind of thing, it's going to bring an emergence, a reemergence of the Catholic Church along with America, because this new Pope's from America. So it kind of unifies those two things and ports it over here to America. So certainly we see that going on, and we've seen the state of America for the past several years. It really looked as if the American empire was crumbling and was destined for the dustbin of history. But now we're actually seeing things begin to turn around here, and America is reclaiming its status as a superpower in this world. So this could signal the arisal and the foundation of a new Roman Empire, a second Roman Empire, which in and of itself is destined to fall according to the biblical scripture, according to the book of Revelation. Because you see, Rome has been largely identified by many biblical scholars and theologians as Babylon when mentioned in terms of the Bible. So when we read in the book of Revelation, Babylon has fallen, has fallen. If you've been a student of the word or the scripture, you know in theological circles that when you see a statement like that made twice, it means literally it will happen twice. So Rome has fallen, and it's going to fall again before the rise and advent of Antichrist. So I think we're seeing the emergence of this new Roman Empire, and it's destined to fall catastrophically at some point. But first, it has to be reestablished, and we have to have this turning back towards the faith and towards spiritual concerns and religious concerns. We need that to come about. And this, of course, all works according to the natural cycles of time, because we're going through what has been identified by authors in the past as the fourth turning. Every 4 generations, we see something like this happen, because you've probably invariably heard the trope that weak men bring about hard times, hard times bring about strong men bring about good times, and good times bring about weak men. So it's this cycle of generations. It's the fourth generation, the fourth turning. So they've kind of leveraged this principle in a lot of ways, and it seems to me they're re-engineering this turning back towards these more right-wing ideologies in the political spectrum of things, and moving back towards common sense and traditional values, because they took it completely off the deep end the other way, didn't they? And now that's why they're able to actually do this. And I think you're correct. It's in order to institute the jackboot. It doesn't matter if it's a right boot or a left boot that's stomping on your head for eternity. It's just the boot's going to be there. And they don't care which direction that falls on. They always play back towards the middle. It's the classic Hegelian control mechanism, really, when it comes down to it. It's the same people in power that have always been in power. Let's put it that way. It's all an illusion of choice.
The boot's going to stomp. Is that a vegan leather boot, an artificial leather boot, or is it actual leather? Do we have?
No, that's going to be actual leather. It's right wing.
Okay. Yeah, it's right wing. So that's actual leather. There's not going to be any kind of vegan alternative to that now. They tried playing that card too. They always you have eat your bugs. You remember you're going to eat your bugs. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Now they got the other guy that the water's not a human right guy in the World Economic Forum in place of Klaus. So it's all the same madness over and over again.
Wayne, in your Synchromystic metadata, do you look into the artist formerly known as Kanye West at all? Does that hit your radar of interest?
I've never looked at anything Kanye West. I couldn't even tell you a single song that he sings or anything that he's ever done. I am so not into pop culture that it's actually like pathetic. I guess you could say modern pop culture. I don't know. Like, I have no idea who you were talking about before. Any of these people. Like, I know.
Dude, I'm the same way.
Yeah, I know the name Kanye West. I couldn't tell you a single thing he's ever done. But that's about it.
He's got a Jesus song or something.
Yeah,
and then the Hail Hitler N-word song.
A short history of Kanye West as a musician, or he kind of talks over music. He was on the cover of Rolling Stone wearing a crown of thorns, kind of representing a Jesus figure. He dated a Kardashian, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Always in the media, always in the paper. He's got this ego where he's the best rapper on the earth. But now in his later life, having children and then losing them, he kind of does the hippity hoppity, kind of that sound thing.
Hippity hoppity. Well, you can't spell crap without rap, I guess. I don't know.
Right. He's not quite like Prince or Tupac. He's more like, he has auto-tuned music where he auto-tunes his voice and he sings about his dentist giving him nitrous. So a long story short, now
that's the entire album, bro.
Well, it's World War III is the theme and title of the album. He plays a character with a funny looking mustache, and he plays speeches of the funny mustache man from Germany from World War II.
Is this the new one or the Jesus one?
His latest album, it's been leaked.
Oh, yeah.
I've listened to it. It's like auto-tune. It sounds like AI auto-tune the voice and just throw out an album. The mimetic energy of people around the globe singing and chanting the HH of hey, how you doing, Mr. Hitler? And then using a word that has two G's in it. And
I could provide us with a white version.
Do you have the mandolin version?
Without the no piano.
Okay.
Yeah, classical piano. In fact, by friend of the show, Foundering.
Okay.
I will say this though. It's less.
Steve, question. Maybe we want to say goodnight, YouTube, and then continue to rumble, and then let the show run.
Oh, we can.
All right, fellas. I do have to bail here. So
thank you so much for your time, Wayne. It's always excellent talking to you, brother.
Nobody's going to respect your time, Wayne. You're staying until we tell you to leave.
Wayne,
It's always a pleasure talking to you, brother, and always enlightening. Just appreciate you coming in, brother. Really
appreciate being here. It's always a pleasure, gentlemen. Be well. We'll do this again real soon. Have a good night.
Let's do that. 100%.
With that, I say let's say goodnight to YouTube, and then maybe we can.
Hold on, before we say goodnight to YouTube, we need to roll out our new segment.
Oh, you got it.
The Dog Pound.
Dog Pound.
That's right. Roll.
Just fresh out of the oven.
So,
turn on my page here. Dog Pound.
Well, I mean, this is something that we had discussed, and it just makes so much sense. I think we're going to have to do it now in the tradition of other very, very famous, very I don't know, varying degrees of credible content creators who have given, you know, particular animal traits as affectionate names to their audiences. We did discuss
the unbearable names.
Yeah, you know, I mean, that's a direction that's been taken, certainly. Yeah, but we are the deliberating dog face dude. So, upon deliberation, we did discuss. Although I don't know if we necessarily pulled the trigger. Ben was all for it. I remember that. Ben was all for it. We discussed the idea of attributing a dog name not to the audience.
It was a double dog dare.
Yeah, not to the
debate
audience,
Dodgers,
but to the debate Dodgers.
Yep.
Yeah. So we would have like let's see, Andrew the hip displaced German Shepherd Wilson.
Okay.
Right, or something like that, right? Like I don't know, dude. I'm spitballing. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
All I know is I want Jay Dyer to be a poofy poodle in hot pink, and fucking, you know, and then some asshole holding it go, it's a hunting dog.
See, I think that Jay Dyer is more of a Labradoodle. I think that he's hypoallergenic. Okay, you could probably bring a Jay Dyer into the White House, and at worst, it would pee on the carpet. At worst. Whereas, if you brought, you know, like an unwashed Balderson into the White House, it would not look the same since Andrew Jackson.
So this would kind of follow in the tradition of Joseph Biden. We'll say a prayer for him. Joseph Biden talked about
because
the soldiers.
We respect everyone going through cognitive decline, and deliberating dog-faced dudes are, you know, always looking out for a cure for dementia or Alzheimer's, or is this because of the fake ass cancer thing?
The cancer in the ball sack. I mean, this is the Synchromystic metadata of cancer. And
I mean, it's not really the ball sack. It's like kind of under the ball sack, like in between the butthole and the ball sack. It's in a weird spot.
Prostate cancer is ass cancer. It is.
I always hear that word, and I hear pro-state, and Joseph Biden was always pro-state.
Pro-state,
so to have pro-state cancer, it makes sense.
It is pretty ironic that a guy with a fake cancer charity that was just used as a money laundering scheme in the name of cancer research got, quote unquote, diagnosed with prostate cancer. That is, after having possibly sacrificed a son, specifically, you know.
Did he sacrifice hunter or gatherer?
It was gatherer.
Gatherer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And by the way,
140
YouTube, we are about to leave you. I haven't done that yet. I'm getting ready to. So if you're watching on YouTube, we're about to cut the live feed to the YouTube channels. Pick it up over on Rumble, on the AM Wake Up Rumble, on the AM Wake Up Odyssey, on the AM Wake Up BitChute, or on the AM Wake Up Rockfin. But yeah, we're dropping off because we're about to violate some RIAA or whatever it is.
NDAs.
Yeah, some
We about to
NDAs,
violate some
NDAs, some NAACPs, some ASPCAs. We're violating all of it. We are.
But to resacralize the scrotums.
Right. We're about to shrink to 4'3" and then
Scrotes.
send angry emails to Balderson at 3:00 in the morning.
Dude, I got some fresh ones in that we'll have to.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got some
So,
freshies.
if you're currently watching on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
don't be a sucker. Go over to the AM Wake Up Rockfin, Rumble, Odyssey, or BitChute, and we'll see you over there. And Ben will disclose some disclosure. Disclosuring
or
is imminent.
non-consensually?
Disclosuring abounds.
What the fuck is going on with my phone?
Bye, YouTube.
We have the Deliberating Dogface Dude stream to say goodnight to. Good night.
Night, guys.
Good night. There we go. There's one.